We are back, guys. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Unnecessary Programming Podcast. Today is Friday, March 31st, 2023. Carmen, we just finished the third month of 2023.
I know.
Wow. How time
2023.
flies, right? How time flies when you're having fun.
Yes,
So we
which is
got nine more
subjective,
months
but
left.
yes.
9 more months left in the year of 2023. That was quick.
Mm.
That was quick. This first 90 days was quick.
Yes, that's all I'll
I gave
say.
up on my New Year's resolution early. Like the first 30 days, mine was finished. And I kicked
Ooh,
myself like, man, could have made it to this 90 days. Could I could have made it
mm.
to this 90.
So what was your 30-day oh, what was your,
I said I wasn't eating
resolution?
pizza no
Oh,
more. I wasn't gonna eat pizza no more this year.
how long did
But
that
this was
last?
with the kids. This was us going back and forth because we turned into pizza heads. I always wanted pizza.
Mm.
And I just kind of made a bet with Nico,
Yeah.
and I lost in the first month. We bet 20 push-ups if I can go the whole year without pizza. That was a friendly wager. I knew I wasn't gonna make it.
That's a
Definitely.
long
Being from
time.
Chicago, how could you not like pizza?
Well, I'm slightly vegan, so I haven't had pizza in 4 years, so well, 5 almost.
Oh, okay, Carmen, you holding it down over there. You're holding it down. Now
Yeah.
that is some strength because home run
Mm.
in. I'm gonna wave that in front of your face, Carmen. That's gonna go crazy right there.
See, but like I tell people, it's like that's how you know it's not good for you. Because once I stopped eating it and I tried to eat it, like I was at my friend's house one time, and there was nothing on the south side healthy in her area besides, well, there was nothing. I had pizza, worst decision of my life. Like it was coming up and out both ends. So never again. Well,
Oh
I
yeah, it's safe to say that with 4 years, like that's a long time. You sort of condition your body, so it's gonna reject that
yep,
now, right?
yep.
That's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing right
Hmm.
there. Yeah,
Exactly.
I can't say that I'll ever want to be there, Carmen. I'm gonna try to ride this thing out, man, and enjoy it. But no. All jokes aside, I know
Mhm,
particularly, I think I've kind of just been lucky, and
mhm,
I ain't gonna say lucky, but just
mhm.
blessed in that factor
Yeah.
where I still work out. I definitely still work out, as often as I can. At least
Mhm.
4 times a week, I'm working out still.
Okay.
But at the same time, I've never ever, knock on wood, had any real health issues or scares in my life. Even at
Mm.
46, I don't take no pills or
Mhm.
nothing like
Yeah.
that. You go do your annual checkup,
Mhm.
and I've always been good. No
Yep.
high
Yep.
cholesterol, diabetes, or nothing like that. So I do pretty much. I don't overly watch what I eat because I
Mhm.
still, eat what I want to eat, but I don't, heavily indulge.
Mhm.
I would say my biggest thing again. I'm gonna contribute this to the way that we grew up in that inner city diet. I love potato
Mm.
chips, though. I do.
Don't do it. Yes, you don't.
A nice bag of salt and sour
Mm. My
Lays,
blood
like,
pressure in the
it takes me
bag.
to heaven. Yeah, see, I know, so I gotta be careful as I get
Mhm.
older, but I don't really overly indulge when I
Mhm.
eat, though, honestly, I don't.
Mhm.
I really
Mhm.
don't never, like, overly indulge. I would say probably for the most part, yeah, some chips, though, would be my guilty pleasure is
Yeah.
what I definitely enjoy, some
Yeah.
nice potato chips, yeah.
But you can
But as
really sorry, you can really have
No, go
anything in
ahead.
moderation. I mean, you just can't overindulge, and that's the issue. A lot of us Americans, it's like, well, why could I save this cake for later when I can have the whole thing now? And it's like because it's probably a whole pound of fat down versus over a course of several days. And if you share it, I
Yeah.
say share the calories. Let's share the fat. You gotta eat it all. You can't share it.
You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right, man. And I don't know, but I think throughout time, like over the last 10 to 15 years, food
Mhm.
has become such a big thing in American
Mhm.
society. Now, mind you, you're scrolling through YouTube, and I
Mhm.
promise you can find a million recipes that you've never seen before, like deep fried Cheetos or something. Like, yo, what?
Yeah, mhm. Oysters, one thing too.
Yeah. Look, yeah, deep fried oysters with hot flaming Cheetos on them or something like that. You're like, yo, what is this combination right here? And they make it look so appealing, so good,
Mhm,
right? Like
mhm.
you've never seen none of this stuff prior to the last 15 years. Social media has really had a heavy
Mhm.
influence, man. It
Yep,
does do it, man, social media does influence, let's be honest too.
a lot of it's the marketing. Like, if you look at a bag of Cheetos and if you look at the nutrition facts, doesn't sell you. Look at the front of the bag. I bet you know the character, you know what he look like, his outfit, what he holding, I mean, you gotta
Now
think
let
about
me
it.
admit, I am guilty of this. I will let's say, for example, I'm at work or something and
Mhm,
I'm going through YouTube and I'm looking at some videos or something, and
mhm,
something may pop up as a commercial
mhm.
and it'll say, new Wendy's or something like that. No, it may not even be a commercial. It may be an influencer who's doing it. So now I'm having
I know,
Wendy's for
right,
lunch.
nowadays.
So it's
Mhm,
working. The marketing
mhm,
this definitely works. And I've done that on a few occasions. I have to admit that. Like, so the marketing does actually work,
yeah,
Carmen. It does. Let's say,
mhm,
even if I'm looking at it, it's Wendy's, whatever, just using that as an example.
mhm.
If I didn't eat it that day, you better believe sometime that week it went back through my mind like, man, that new bacon deluxe, whatever galore.
See, social
I'm
media
going to Wendy's.
again.
It is.
Have you seen the video of the preparation of how they make chili from the old frozen ground beef patties?
See, now I don't even want to see it,
You'd
Carmen. No.
never probably eat. I mean, granted, the chili's probably not mind blowing anyway, but you probably won't want to eat it after that. I mean, think like, what
I'm
are they
pretty sure.
chopping up? And then you see the before, it's like, oh, meat. Okay, nope, not eating that.
No, I can imagine that, man. I think YouTube is definitely like a modern day Alexandria library,
Mm,
but it can also, like, it has to be regulated. Like, we have to self regulate, like, social. It's funny. We have to self regulate
hey,
social
well,
media because
mhm,
it can be a doozy, and it is unforgiving too. People
mhm,
are very cruel.
mhm,
On the internet in general. If you're reading some comments just on
mhm.
regular videos, that they may not even be serious. It could be funny or something
Yeah.
educational, and you just go
Mhm.
through the comments like, "Yo, like you need a hug,
I
man. Like whoever
know.
this is, I wish I
Mhm.
could read.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. It's like I
Need
don't
to
even
hug you.
watch
This
the
is an
video.
angry comment."
I watch the videos just to read the comments. Just like, oh, that was oh, that's worse. Oh, that's more entertaining to me than watching the video
Wow,
sometimes.
that's true. It is true. I think we all do that from time to time. Like you'll
Yeah.
see a video title, and the first thing you do is you click on it, but you scroll down
Mhm.
and start reading the
Yep.
comments while you listening to the
It's like, tell
listening
me
to the
how I
video at
should
the same
feel
time.
as I'm watching this, and let's see if we compare.
Wow, wow. Oh wait, hey, speaking of the internet and
Mhm.
social media, I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on the new AI craze, on the
Mm,
new rise, of AI, Chat GPT, and all these
mhm.
other AI tools that are now available, that's kind of game changing in a sense.
I'm a little bit torn with anything artificial, Yancy.
Mm.
But I
What's
feel
up?
in this instance, thinking back when I remember in grade school, we're not gonna say what year, but the first computer that we had, I don't know if it's a neighborhood, I don't know if it's the budget, but it was the little dots. Like it was like pre Microsoft Word, pre Microsoft Office, like
MS
how
DOS,
oh,
DOS
yep,
program.
that one. Yep. And it was like you played a game almost. You didn't do any actual work. It was the computer was for games. But now it's like computers is like so everything. Like literally our phones are a computer. Like you want to have a question answered, you just go to your phone. Now you can even ask Alexa, let me whisper because she already listening. So it's like AI is taking over everything. I was telling my mom today, I was like, it's gonna be where you're gonna be like, Alexa, open the garage. It's just like
Well,
the door's gonna go.
that's now. You could do that now. You could definitely do that now. Alexa, turn on the lights. In the garage. Like I've seen some YouTube commercials where I'm
Mm.
serious. Alexa, flush the toilet. Seriously, because
What's
it's
next? Wipe my ass
connected
too.
to the Wi-Fi. Refrigerators are now connected to the Wi-Fi, Carmen.
Yeah.
The stove is connected to the Wi-Fi. The microwave is connected to your Wi-Fi.
Mm. I just have two horrific thoughts when I think of that. One, The Simpsons, when they kind of when Homer got that dream job, and like the house was like terrorizing them. And then another movie, Smart House or something. The lady from Married with Children. I think everybody knows Peggy.
Okay.
She was the mom,
Hmm.
but like it was like a smart house, but the house was like holding them hostage. So it's like, would I really want to be in a place where the house controls like my entrance and my exit? Because I don't want to have to break the windows to get out of my home that I pay for, like AI or Alexa. This is my home. You shut up.
Ooh, you see, they have the keypads on the front doors in many homes now.
Yeah,
That's a big, huge
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You
But
can unlock and lock the door from your
yeah,
phone. You
yeah.
can control the temperature in your home from the
I
phone. Now,
know.
I want to ask you, Carmen. Well, as a human civilization, are
Mm.
we not expected or supposed to evolve?
Yes
Because you know
and
we're not flying the same plane that the Wright brothers invented.
thank God not. We wouldn't make it, especially today's weather in Chicago.
This isn't the same freight trains that are on the tracks today.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Are we not supposed to evolve as a society? I know technology though it has rapidly advanced in the
Mm,
last 20 years.
yes.
Remember the first iPhone was 2007. Let's go all the way back. There you go.
Y yes, which I didn't have, but yes.
So think about that. That was a game
Mhm.
changer because it was
Yeah.
the iPod at first, right, where we had our music
Mhm.
on.
Exactly.
And the iPhone came out in 2007. I remember the first time I saw one. It was I was renting an apartment over there in Berwyn near North
Mhm.
Riverside over there. When I
Mhm.
was moving out, actually moving to California, the
Mhm.
guy who owned the building, he had an iPhone.
Mhm.
He was an older gentleman, much, much
Yeah.
older, and he
Yeah.
showed it to me, and he was putting my information there. He said his kids
Mhm.
had got it for him as a gift birthday, but he didn't know how
Mhm.
to work it. So he was scrolling up and down trying to put my information in it, and I asked him what kind of phone it was, and he showed it to me, and he was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, this is just the new Apple product here." And I was
Mhm.
amazed by that. And you know, they were extremely expensive back. Well, no,
Yeah.
they were like
Well, no.
$500 back.
Yeah. Which is a
So
lot.
that would be inexpensive today compared to the new iPhone when it comes out now. It's like what 14, $1,500 or something like
Yep,
that.
yep, yep, rent. Mhm.
So no, Carmen, I want to ask you that question: are we not expected to evolve as a society when you look at the way in the rapid advancement of technology within the last 15 to 20 years and how much it's been infused in our everyday lives?
I say we should, but I don't feel as humans we're evolving as fast as the AI technology world, so to speak.
Touche, Carmen. Okay.
Yes, and I feel like it's making us lazy as a people just because, like, why do it when I can have something else do it? And, like, that's kind of the mindset that I feel like a lot of us are slipping into. It's like, "Well, why do my homework when you're in school when you could just binge watch, like, YouTube and teach you?" Or, like, why do anything by hand? Why read a book when, like, audiobook can read it for you, you know? Like, why do anything? Like, why put the effort into doing something? I feel like it's taking the motivation out of stuff. Like, what's gonna make you desire to move if
Mm.
everything's doing it for you? Like, cars are
No,
driving
that
you
makes sense.
around, literally.
Oh, no, that you're absolutely right. That makes sense. And I
Yeah.
can't say, and I'll admit I have not thought about it from that perspective and that level that you brought
Mhm.
about because
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. Like, especially with young children and that type of technology,
Mhm.
and we see this all the time, right? It's always talked about. We can go on YouTube and find plenty of videos where the parent speaks upon removing the electronics from the child or even from the teenagers too, taking their phones away, and
Yes.
how emotionally attached
Mm.
they are to the technology, right?
Exactly.
And to the
Mhm.
items.
Mhm.
So, in fact, that'll bring us into our topic for today, which will be discussing emotional intelligence, right? And understanding emotional intelligence and how does
Mhm.
one acquire and recognize emotional
Mhm.
intelligence. How can
Mhm.
you apply this to your everyday life and your everyday experiences, right?
Yes.
So, again, you think about that, Carmen, on a deeper
Mhm.
level. You look at the younger generation. Now, let's be fair, too. Let's be
Mhm.
quite fair with
Yeah.
this that they live in a world in which no one has ever lived in before them. They
Exactly.
practically grew up on the internet.
Mhm.
They are emotionally attached to the technology, right?
Mhm.
So they care a lot about what's said online or comments and things like that.
Mhm.
That definitely drives an emotional reaction that we see higher bouts of depression,
Mm.
anxiety,
Yes.
right? The level of suicide has gone up
Exactly.
drastically in addition
Exactly.
to, just recently the shooting that was just in the
Mm.
news, right? The mass shooting
Exactly.
at the
Exactly.
what was that, a high school or college
Mhm.
or elementary? I'm not quite sure. I
The
didn't get into
elementary
that too
school.
much, but I did
Like
see, the
9 years.
headlines going everywhere.
Mhm.
So how do you take all of this, what we're dealing with today, and again, you do develop a certain level of emotional intelligence that allows you to function, with
Mhm.
the technology, but don't become so attached to it where you can't live without it because these things do affect our relationships too, right?
Exactly.
Right? We talk
Yeah.
about relationships. and length, right? But now you're
Mhm.
talking about emotional intelligence and how that regulates a relationship.
Exactly.
Emotional intelligence and how you apply that in not just intimate relationships, but work relationships, right?
Mhm.
Business relationships, the relationships that we share with our kids, the relationships that we share with our siblings and
Exactly.
friends and things like that, right? The
Mhm.
emotional intelligence aspect of that and the environment that we come from, which we talk about quite often, we can both agree that there is a huge lack of emotional intelligence in the environment in which we come from. Because for us, we are quick to react
Mhm.
emotionally. And I mentioned this in our last podcast where I said, because we are easily offended by words, right? We are heavily
Drastically.
confrontation and emotional. Now, Carmen,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that there aren't there are never times that we shouldn't be emotional. We're
Mhm.
human. We're creatures, right? Of
Exactly,
habit
exactly,
to an extent.
exactly,
So there are emotions within us. However,
exactly.
being able to manage those emotions, right? And
Yes.
knowing when and how to regulate your emotions is extremely
Mhm.
important, right? In terms of
Yes,
finding success
definitely.
in relationships, career, and just within our
Mhm.
lives.
Exactly. I would even add to that, you have your positive emotions, the things that kinda make you kinda, put more work into doing things that kinda give you more of that reward, so to speak. Like the Bible talks about it, you reap what you sow. So if I sow goodness, if I do good things to get happiness back, if I'm treating you with love, you should get that back. You also have your negative emotions, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the irritability. Those are just going to drain you. And it's like you have to be aware of which ones are helping you, which ones are hurting you. Like you said, which ones, even though I think which one is a bill and which one is a bonus. Like think of it in that way. Like if it's draining you, if it's costing you things, whether it's your family, your friends, your peace of mind, which should be like the one thing that you never lose. Like peace of mind is something that you have to learn how to acquire a state of stillness. And a lot of people, the emotions they act on because those are physiological things. Like I was telling the girl today, she's like, "Oh, I don't know how to tell when I'm upset or when I'm stressed out. How does your body feel? Is your heart beating fast?
Mm,
Are you out of breath? Are your thoughts racing so fast? It's like your brain is running on the inside of your head. Are you sitting back like I can't sit still. I'm fidgeting because I can't. Like, are you sweating profusely and you're not exercising? Like, that's the stuff that you need to pay attention to because that's your body's way of saying the energy on the inside is building up. I don't know if you angry, frustrated, or we're about to exercise, but I'm telling you something is about to happen. And a lot of times we're just like, no, I just need to go off on the MF. And it's like, no, maybe you just need to learn how to get stronger on the inside to let nothing bother you on the outside. Like, we so focused on the behavior like, but they looked at me wrong. Okay, but how's their day going? Like they grandma could have died. They could have just lost their car. They rent needs to get paid and they don't have a job. So excuse them for not saying hello when you spoke to them this morning because they mind going so loud they did not hear you. And you thinking they just ignoring you when it's like they might actually have stuff going on and it's not really about you. And I think that's what sometimes a lot of it is we want to put ourselves in the reason that somebody's not doing something. Oh, you don't like me because I must have done something wrong. Or you must not like start even thinking they don't like you. Do you care? And if the answer is yes, I care, then keep following that path. But if you don't care what they think, then stop following the path. That's not gonna get you nowhere. Like you said, what you eat don't make me go to the bathroom.
that's true. No, that's true. I think that's a great comparison,
Yeah.
an analogy of the level of emotional intelligence that it takes to even recognize and
Yeah.
navigate
Mhm.
through that type of interaction with someone,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because like you said, everybody's going through something. Everybody's dealing with some type of issue or frustration within
Exactly.
their life, whether it be good or bad too, whether it be good or
Exactly.
bad too. So,
Exactly.
we can't have certain expectations of
Mhm.
others that we may not even have for ourselves. I have this little thing that I do every single morning, never miss a morning when I'm dropping my
Mhm.
kids off at school. Once we reach like 2, 3 minutes away from the school, I'll turn off the radio
Mhm.
and I'll have them do positive affirmations. Like we do it. I started off. Today's going to be a great day. Today's going to be an amazing day, filled with positive
Mhm.
energy, positive interactions. Today I'm not going to
Mhm.
worry. Today I'm not stressed. Today I'm not
Yeah.
experiencing any anxiety.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we say, and I find this to be just so important because it relating to what
Mhm.
you just said.
Mhm.
I am patient with myself as well as
Mhm.
others.
Exactly.
I am patient with myself as well as others. It's
Mhm.
important, right?
Mhm.
That you be patient with other people. It's very
Mhm.
important to be able to be self-aware to recognize that. Again, that is a level of emotional intelligence, right? Let me,
Mhm.
Carmen, before we move forward, let me
Yeah.
break down, and I want to give a definition to our listeners of emotional intelligence, and then
Yeah.
I'll let you build from this here. All
Hey,
right.
no worries. Let me
So,
get my notes
emotional
together.
intelligence refers to the ability to identify, understand, and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. It
Mhm.
involves being aware of one's own emotions and the impact they have on oneself and others, as well as having the ability to regulate one's emotions in order to effectively navigate different situations. Emotional intelligence is also about being able to recognize and respond appropriately to the emotions of others. This involves being able to empathize with others, understand their perspective, and communicate effectively with them. People with high emotional intelligence tend to have better interpersonal relationships,
Mhm.
greater self awareness, and better overall mental health. They also are more likely to be effective leaders as they are able to understand and communicate with their team members in a way that is sensitive and yet effective. What's your thoughts on that, Carmen?
I'm like the congregation at church, like, amen, because it's so true. Like, a lot of it stems. We think a lot of how we are to be as humans, or how we supposed to act, how our personality traits come together. It's our parents and it's our environment. But yes, it is. But then it's also what you take from those two and how you turn things to be negative into a positive. Like, if I know I wanted to run a marathon, but I've never ran a mile, like, would I go run tomorrow 26 miles? No, because I might be in the hospital that night because my body is like, "What are we doing? Like, we running on purpose, this long intensity?" It's not used to it, and it's like, that's where we fall short, because it's like, well, we expect to run the marathon tomorrow with no preparation in between. It's like, no, put the work in. If you don't wanna put the work in, like, you don't have the right, and I'm sorry to say it, you don't have the right to complain, because how you gonna get something when you put in nothing? That's like, "Oh, I wanna make a cake." And you sit down on the couch. You didn't, instead of going in the kitchen, putting the ingredients together, putting it in the oven, waiting for it to bake, and then enjoying the cake, you just sit on the couch. The cake will never get made and you will never eat it. But we expect
Hmm.
people to come and knock on the door and say, "Hey, you want a cake?" And just bring it to you like Mr. Ratburn off Arthur, which I love. Because he loved cake. Like, that man would just pop up, like, "You guys are having cake?" And it's like, Mr. Ratburn is not going to come into your life and say, "Oh, you need EI? You need emotional intelligence here?" No, it's not. No, it's not going to work that way. You got to go and work for it. Like, I have the analogy of riding a bicycle. If I'm pedaling and I stop, how long will I go before I fall? If I never pedal again? And it's like, we get on the bike thinking that, oh yeah, everything's so smooth, but what if it's bumpy? What if your legs hurt? You catch a cramp? Like, what if you can't move? Like, how do you keep going forward? And what if you do fall? Do you just stay on the ground and say, "I'm never getting on the bike again"? No, if you want to ride a bike, you learn how to ride. And then, Yancey, from your story, you made a bicycle, so you really wanted to learn.
Yes.
You figured it
Yes.
out. And it's like, if you don't, and people say, "Well, I don't know, it's so hard." Yeah, it is. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. To build yourself out of a place that you consider to be a pit is not easy, because it wouldn't be called a pit if it was easy. We'd be all in heaven right now.
They say in order to get to heaven, you got to go through hell.
Literally. And if you read your Bible, Satan has, or the enemy, however you want to term it, bad energy, karma, voodoo, whatever, has free reign
Right.
of earth. They say, why bad things happen to good people? Bad things happen to every person. We just isolate other incidents to make ourselves, unfortunately, the victim sometimes. Like, that passive aggressive personality is not going to get us far in life. Like, you can't be the victim and the victor. You can't be both. Like, you have to choose one.
Mhm.
And you can't have everybody else take on your responsibilities because you choose to be the victim. Like, if you're gonna be the victim, then you associate yourself with other victims. But like they say, misery loves company. So the victim comes along with the victors and they try to leech on. But it's like, if you're not gonna have the motivation to stay and be of this caliber, then why are you even trying to compete to bring somebody else down? And it's like, that's not how you should do things. So,
Mhm.
well, my little
Mm,
aggressive 2 cents.
no, no, that totally makes sense. And comparing and
Mm.
contrasting with regards to
Mhm.
define what emotional
Mhm.
intelligence is
Mhm.
on a particular level like this, right? And I look at it from plenty different angles, whether it be in the work environment, whether
Yes.
it be personal relationships. I think
Yes.
when it comes to emotional intelligence, and if you're looking to, develop a higher level of emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
it will always start with developing a high level of self awareness, right? Because
Yes.
once you
Yes.
become self aware of your own emotions and
Mm.
the way that you tend to think, you will
Yes.
automatically have something in you that knows that other people around you have their own emotions and a certain way of thinking as well.
Exactly.
This is what
Mhm.
you call self-awareness. So
Exactly.
if you know that you are the type of individual that is currently very impatient, you're still
Mm.
working on yourself, you
Mhm.
may not want to just jump into a relationship because it will tend to trigger you where certain characteristic traits will come out and exhibit that behavior that will kind of hinder you from developing a high level of self-awareness, right? You know that you're still dealing with some things, but you want to
Mhm.
involve and attach yourself to another
Mhm.
person just out of the need
Mhm.
of not wanting to be alone. That's very dangerous. And I think we do tend to do that for a lot of times in relationships because, just not wanting to be alone when maybe you should be in a season of being alone in order to know more about yourself and to heal from the hurt
Mhm.
that, you may have experienced in the past. And if you're still holding
Mhm.
on to that and you're inviting someone else into your life and, let's say that person is not healed or they're in a certain space in their life as well,
Mhm.
what you're tending
Mhm.
to do is create chaos, automatic chaos in that said
Mhm.
relationship that you're looking to develop. Those things right there will be a great definer to let you know how you're growing in your personal life in terms of developing, emotional intelligence. We can take that
Mhm.
also into the work environment. If you know
Mhm.
that you're not the type of person who likes to interact face to face with the public,
Mhm.
you might not want to go and apply and seek a job or a career that allows you to interact and face with the public because again maybe you're very introverted or again you have little triggers that are still within you and you tend to maybe spaz out on people from time to time, so
Mhm.
that there should let you know that there's still some development that needs to take place within yourself in order for you to go out and interact effectively for something that doesn't
Mhm.
cause harm to yourself or others. Again, this is
Mhm.
emotional intelligence. Like being a teacher, that's another great
Mhm.
example too. Sometimes we'll look at our careers and jobs, and I'll take it just for the sake of wanting a job, but knowing that
Mhm.
that's not a true fit for my personality. You know what I mean? And I'm just using that as an example because I've
Exactly.
said this several times that I think teachers are the most
Yes.
important asset in society and that they should
Mhm.
be paid well over a minimum of $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? So when I think
Yeah.
about that aspect of it, I think again from having a high level of emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
you're able to know, your strengths and your weaknesses of where
Exactly.
you can place yourself in terms of a career.
Exactly. And I would even add, so I got my little notes on my thing I'm gonna read. So this is actually from some textbook, but it's basically saying how EI is the relationship between our emotions, feelings, and our behaviors, with our emotions being our physiological features. So that's how we feel. And that's on the inside. And the behaviors obviously being on the outside, and the feelings kind of being like we so used to thinking of emotions and feelings are the same thing, but no, because I can't see your emotions. I can assume how you feel based on your behavior of how you're presenting yourself, basically the way that you look. And it's like sometimes we have to take a step back and not just look at a person and assume, specifically if we're not asking them, hey, you look a little down, or you look a little angry, or you look a little, indecisive, or whatever term you want to use, and then let them respond. Don't put a feeling into that person, or don't give them an emotion that they're not feeling. And a lot of times we
Makes
do that because based on past experiences or the last relationship I had, but that was your last relationship, which maybe, like you said, Yancy, reason to take some time out and maybe be more self aware because it's stages to it. It's like 5 levels to EI, and I'm gonna just go briefly. You have your self awareness, your self regulation, your motivation, your social skills, and your empathy. And a lot of people, which is one thing they try like drilling into our minds and nursing and nurse practitioner school, is like you have to have empathy. In my mind, you can't buy. You can give somebody sympathy, but if you don't have empathy, you can't put yourself in their shoes if you've never experienced a situation, but you can relate to how they feel. And a lot of us
Mhm.
sometimes feel, but nobody understand how I feel. No, that's true. Nobody will understand exactly on point how you feel except for you. So the only thing we can do is we can describe it, we can express it, we can let it out, but we can't make a person feel how we feel. And I think that's what we have all these disconnects. It's like, well, I want you to understand, or I want to get revenge. I want to make you feel how I feel, but you can do everything, including kill a person, which I don't advise, and that still won't get a person to do what you want them to do. Like you can knock them upside the head, which again, I don't advise. But still, you can't get a person to do anything. I mean, you can talk to a person. We know as kids, how many times did somebody say, "You're not listening," every
Mhm.
day?
Yep.
So same thing, people don't change because they grow up and become 18 or 21 or 25. You got people who are in their 70s who still living a life of I don't know and I'm just doing, or people are
Mhm.
telling me what to do, which is why I think sometimes jail is easy for somebody. Because imagine they went from authority, get up, go to school, get up, do this, get up, do that, and they had freedom to do what they wanted at 18. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do. So they go out there and it's like, well, if I go to jail, they tell me when to get up, they tell me when to do this. It's like that same authority because it's like, I don't know what to do. So I'd rather just have somebody tell me. I mean, granted, the lifestyle and the behaviors around are saying, I need help, but it's like we so focused on the behavior, but it's like, well, what about what happened to make them that way before they got that way? We don't want to focus
Which
on that. And we got to go and we got to figure out a solution to help. Almost like with medicine, it's like, well, if I don't identify a problem, then I don't have to treat it. But what if the person dies because you decided to look, at something different?
well, that makes sense, Carmen, because study
Mm,
shows that most repeat offenders do have a low level of emotional intelligence because
mm,
they're placed typically back into the environment in the neighborhood in which they offended, which got them
exactly.
locked up in the first place. So when they come
Mm,
home, they typically go through those different phases and stages as well as
mhm,
feeling as though that they need to get back as quick as possible or
mhm,
reintegrate themselves back into society as quickly as possible, which
exactly.
typically causes them to make emotional decisions, and those
Exactly.
emotional decisions is what leads them back to repeat the offense that got them the
Mm,
first time that they were incarcerated or locked up. And an example
mhm,
would be, let's say, for you have children, and I'll say this is going to be offensive. I know that, but I think anybody that has kids and they keep going to jail, that they really don't care about their kids. That's a fact. If
mhm,
you've been to jail and you keep going back and forth to jail and you have young children, I would say that you don't care about your kids at all. And here's an example where I use, and I'll say,
mhm,
it's the holidays. This is a big one, and we all, again, this is emotional intelligence. We all feel
mhm,
as though if we have children, they need the best of everything, or you got to do this and you got to do that for
mhm,
your kids. Need be, if you think
mhm,
about it on a deeper level, yeah, you should, right?
mhm,
If you have
mhm,
children, it's your
mhm.
responsibility. You should be investing into your children, right? That's your job, is
Exactly.
to try to
Mhm.
provide for them the best environment as possible. So it's the holidays,
Exactly.
and you can't buy your kids anything. So instead of you having a conversation with your kids, telling them like, "Hey, dad or mom is not really in a position to buy you some gifts or celebrate this year like we normally would. So, but once we get straight, I'll make sure that I can double back and help you get whatever it is that you want." So instead, you
Mhm.
take chances and maybe you go out and rob somebody. Now, instead of you
Mhm.
going and keeping that job and working McDonald's or whatever job that you have, and
Mhm.
slow money is better than no money. I always say that. You would rather go out and do something off an emotional decision. Now, that emotional decision that you just made, it just took you away from their lives for the next 5 Christmases
Mm. But you know what I would
because
I would play? Go ahead.
because you weren't willing to really think out your plan and what it
Mm,
is that you actually need to do to put yourself in a better position. Again, slow money better than
mm,
no money. Whether you're working at
mm,
McDonald's, Amazon, driving Uber, or whatever it is,
mm,
slow money better than
mm,
no money. And you can always stack
mm,
some slow money and get you to where you need to be. But to make an emotional
mm,
decision for, a celebrated holiday to get your kids, gifts at that particular time, but it takes you
mm,
away from them after you inevitably get caught for the next 5 Christmases. And you
mm,
have to ask yourself, was it worth it? Was that emotional
mhm,
decision that you just made?
mhm. Yeah. But let me present this question to you because I'm sure it's a lot of people in this situation. So, what about well, let's not call him a criminal. Let's call him the person who apparently keeps getting locked up. So, what about the modeling aspect of it or the programming, let's call it? So, for example, we'll call him Johnny. Why not? So, Johnny
Mhm,
keeps going to jail, but when we look at Johnny's history, Johnny's dad was like this, Johnny's grandfather was like this. I mean, even Johnny's mama stole. Like he never
mhm.
had an influence. Like even all his friends were stealing. Like they got him stealing, and he was trying not to as a kid. But he said, "Well, I need this, so I need that because everybody doing it." So he never had, I guess, a positive influence to show him this is not the only life you have to live. Like, what
Yeah,
about
that,
him?
that
What about Johnny?
I think that's a great example where you provide with Johnny. And there's layers to
Mm,
that though, Carmen. Early on, I can't place the blame upon Johnny because he becomes a product of his environment. If you're right, if there's no
mhm,
positive role models or anything around him,
mhm,
he's going to gravitate towards what he sees as being his
mhm,
reality, and this is how we
mhm,
operate in this environment. We
mhm,
hustle, we sell drugs, we rob, we,
mhm, mhm,
unfortunately, we take each other's lives. And
mhm,
look, this isn't, this is within any environment that's like this. You know what I
mhm,
mean? This is not black or Hispanic or anything, just any environment
mhm.
that's like that.
Human.
So if you think about that on a much deeper level, that's very layered. So Johnny's going through the
Mhm,
system. You're absolutely right. His mom was on drugs, and his
mhm,
dad wasn't around, or his dad's always been locked up.
mhm,
His uncles all
mhm,
been locked up. That's all
mhm,
he sees. His neighbors, their dads, all of them around been locked up. Early on,
mhm,
Johnny's definitely, he has, no choice but to immerse himself in this environment. His brain and his
mhm,
understanding and his thought patterns and recognition aren't fully there
mhm,
for him to see something
mhm,
outside of that. And we know we can
mhm,
say, well, hey, Johnny can go to school. We know what compulsory education is within the inner city.
mhm,
That's not school. That's just, the
mhm.
gateway to prison.
Yeah.
Everybody, especially for young males that are in that environment. So that's not going to work. So in order for
Mhm,
Johnny to bring himself out of that particular circumstances in life,
mhm,
it'll have to take place when he gets much older, when he's able
mhm,
to be held more accountable for his actions, right? Once you know better, you
mhm,
do better, right? And we living in a different time
mhm,
too. There are plenty of people who have gone to prison, gotten out of prison, and gone on and did
mhm,
well. After a while, it becomes a choice. So that's why I made that statement that
mhm,
says, especially if little Johnny has a
mhm,
child. Now, that's a huge
mhm,
responsibility. Now I think like I can start holding little Johnny a little bit accountable now,
mhm,
right? You
mhm,
may not be
mhm,
wanting to make those type of decisions to
mhm,
take care or use that as an excuse. I'm not saying a decision to use that as an excuse to take care of your child.
mhm,
I'm going to do anything by
mhm,
any means. Well, we know in American society that's not how that works. We know if we do something
mhm.
and it's illegal, there's a high chance that we may get caught. Not only will we get caught, there's a high
Exactly.
chance that we can be removed from society, which will remove me from
Mhm,
my child's life. And if I love
mhm,
my child, like I say that I do, I would do anything in this particular life experience to be a part of his or her life to make sure that I'm there to protect them because the world is cruel. If I'm not there to
mhm,
protect my child, I'm thinking as little Johnny, as I'm getting older, anything can happen. I don't know
mhm,
what type of men or women that are around them now that could possibly be
mhm,
doing harm to them. That would be a worry for me. That would be a cause for
mhm,
me if I'm thinking and using a higher level of emotions that I need to be here. I need to be out here. I
mhm,
need to go work at McDonald's. I need to go and work at Wendy's and Burger King and Amazon and drive Uber. You know, I need to
mhm,
be in my
mhm,
child's life. I need to be picking them up and dropping them off and taking them to school. I would be wanting to invest in my child as opposed to
mhm,
being away from them because I made an emotional decision and I became somewhat of a follower and it removed me from society. I think that's
mhm,
very important. I think that goes on. That's a great example, Carmen. Like there's
mhm,
Johnnies all over the United States of America in every single inner
mhm,
city. as we speak
Yes.
that's going through that. That's a part of that. Like he's little Johnny was born into it. He had no
Mm.
choice.
But
When he was born, he was going to go to jail, Carmen. If his dad's been in jail, his uncle's been in jail, his mom's been on drugs, his grandmother drinks all day long, his
Mhm.
aunts are on drugs, all of his uncles are on drugs. Johnny's going
Mhm.
to jail. In order for Johnny not to go to jail, he has to be like the study we just finished reading. He has to be
Mhm.
gifted. He has to be
Mm.
gifted in his
Mhm.
intelligence early on to be able to see through the fog of what's not the reality of how the rest of the world
Mhm.
is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Other than that,
Mhm.
there's a high chance that Johnny is going to there's a 90% chance that Johnny's going to go to jail. And if Johnny doesn't go to jail, Johnny will become the victim of drugs and alcohol that will take the
Mm.
forefront of his life.
Okay. Well,
So
make. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say
Johnny,
again,
Johnny gonna
so
get worse,
layered,
but okay.
it's layered what you asked, but you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
That's a great example. And I can't fault
Mhm.
Johnny or hold Johnny accountable at that early
Mhm.
stage. However,
Mhm.
once Johnny becomes a man, I think I can then hold Johnny accountable for his actions and let him know that at this particular point in time, there's no more kind of point of blame. I know we got things within
Mhm.
us from our
Yeah.
early upbringing that still kind of hinders
Mhm.
us. But again,
Mhm.
if I want to do better, Carmen, I am going to seek out alternatives to do better. I'm going to go and find resources that will
Mhm.
assist me with doing better. I'm going to begin to surround myself with people that can help me do better as
Mhm.
opposed to sitting in that same space and spot and coming up with excuses after excuse as to why I make these decisions as if the world owed me
Mhm.
something. I know your
Mhm.
mother was on drugs, your dad wasn't there.
Exactly.
I'm aware of that.
Mhm.
But that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that the rest of the world owes you something where you need to inflict your pain on the rest of the world by
Mhm.
robbing, killing, and stealing. Like that's not
Mhm.
how it works. That's just not how
Mhm.
it works. There's going to be
Mhm.
consequences for those actions. And then again, I'll take it a little bit deeper and go spiritual and say, things within our lives and the experience that we get, it could be for a certain
Mhm.
reason if I look at it that way.
Mhm.
And I was just
Mhm.
having a conversation with someone earlier, and I told them, whenever you go out and to chase a better part of life, things will come to you. That's a fact. That life
Mhm.
will come to you when you make a decisive decision of what it is that you're going to do and going to be.
Mhm.
Life
Mhm.
will come to you. What does that mean? In terms of opportunity, people,
Yeah.
resources, things just happen
Exactly.
when you start
Mhm.
walking towards life that you want. I can almost
Mhm.
guarantee, I'll bet anybody out there that's listening that that is the truth. Life will come
Yeah.
to you.
Yes. Okay, Yancy. I hear you, but Johnny, he was doing good, but let me tell you his story. This is his dilemma now. Okay, so before Johnny went to jail so many times, well, no, after this last time, Johnny's record is pretty felonious. He has, let's just say, four felonies. He got four felonies. The last time they threw it out, so he was lucky he didn't get that fifth one. So while
Okay.
he was locked up those few days before he got out, he met this old man. Let's just call him Jack. Jack told him, he needs to get it together. He young. He just had a baby. So Johnny gets out, decides I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna live right. So he goes, he tries to get a trade, goes to a program. He pays for the money. Somebody helps him out. He goes and tries to look for work, but all of Johnny's bad is now showing. All those felonies that he had. Don't nobody want to give Johnny a job. And Johnny,
Mm.
this is now fast forward some time in his life. This is going on 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So how long should Johnny wait before, or what should Johnny do? And how long should he wait to stay in this state? Like what options does he have?
Yeah, that was a great one, Carmen. When you hit it at the end, I think
Mhm.
there are a few things that I would say that Johnny can definitely do because the
Mhm.
beauty of it is the times that we're living in right now. Technically,
Mhm.
Johnny doesn't have to work for anybody in the times that we're living in right now, due to the beginning
Yeah.
of our conversation of this podcast when we talked about the
Yeah.
usage of technology and
Mhm.
how even there's several things, but we'll expand on that. So let's just say,
Mhm.
Johnny does have that rough background. He does,
Mhm.
know that it keeps popping up. So this goes
Mhm.
back to educating yourself. There's two ways. There's formal and
Mhm.
informal. I would talk to Johnny prior to him diving into this particular career that he's looking to go into, or this job or that certificate.
Mhm.
Hey, Johnny, before we do that, let's just do a little bit of research before we jump into
Mhm.
that because we don't really want to,
Mhm.
not waste our time, but get disappointed because they have a
Mhm.
hard rule where we don't take any felonies on your background. So let's not
Mhm.
pursue that because we know that that'll be
Mhm.
somewhat of a challenge for us to overcome, right? Emotional
Mm.
intelligence,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So let
Exactly.
me try to find something that I know that's a little bit more open that I can do,
Mhm.
yet I can
Mhm.
financially take care of myself. A felony may not hinder me, and I'm also
Mhm.
feeling good about what it is that I'm doing. Now, you and I both
Mhm.
know there's a few things that he can do, right? School is one of
Okay.
them, right?
Yes.
That's just one way
Mhm.
of formally going out and educating yourself because there are plenty of things that you could do if you do have a felony. Like you can still be a lawyer,
Mhm.
right? You know that, right?
Mhm.
Even if you
Mhm.
have a felony, you can go through the
That's
process in which, after a certain amount of time, you can submit an application and maybe have your felony sealed where it doesn't maybe pop
mhm.
up because you've been doing good. You've been on the right path for the last 5 years or so, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
I forgot the other one that you could do. Expunged or something like that, and
Mhm.
then you can take it a step further. There are plenty of men who've done this. You can go online and look. If you've gone a certain amount of time, and I'm using the formal educational aspect, you can maybe even seek out a pardon from the governor because you've done such a drastic
Mhm.
change, which will
Mhm.
then open up plenty of doors for you. And you can also go the
Mhm.
route of becoming an entrepreneur. Hey, I see it all the time. People get on YouTube and tell their felony stories, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers, right? On
Mhm.
TikTok,
Exactly.
Instagram,
Instagram,
plenty of them, right? You
Facebook.
can write a book about,
Mhm.
your experience. There's plenty of ways for you to generate income and live a life that it is that you want to live. And because I'm of the mindset of this for little Johnny, there's no man on this earth that can stop you from doing what you want to do. You'll always be your own worst enemy. Nobody will do more
Exactly.
harm to you than you'll do to yourself. I don't care what you've been through. There's
Mhm.
no man on this earth that can stop you from living the way that you want to do if you apply yourself mentally and emotionally.
Mhm.
I promise
Exactly.
you that. Nobody can stop you from doing what you want to do. You got to use your mind. And if you don't use your mind, we said this on the last podcast, somebody's going to use it for you. And guess what Johnny's going to do? He's going to come back and give us excuse after excuse after we
Mhm.
give him different alternatives, different resources, different
Exactly.
paths, different ways. Now, if Johnny keeps on that, Johnny's going to have to grow a little bit more in order for him to see
Exactly.
what I said just a couple of minutes ago, that the world doesn't owe you nothing.
Mhm.
So you can't keep
Exactly.
inflicting your pain, your hurt, your
Mhm.
letdown on the rest of the world, or use that as excuse as to why you can't press
Mhm.
and move forward in life. Anything you want to do, you can do it. If not, you're going to make an excuse as to why you can't get it done. The same amount of
Exactly.
energy that you put in the effort into getting those felonies is the same amount of energy and effort that you apply to Xing those felonies out and taking your life and going to
Mhm.
another route. It's no different.
Exactly.
Again, once you begin to
Exactly.
walk towards life, life will walk towards you.
Exactly. I would even say you have to put even more energy because it's easy to do bad. Like you can wake up and bad's already there, but it takes so much more energy to be better. And a lot of people are like, "Oh well, I don't want to do it because it's hard." Everything's hard if you think of it. Like if you really think about it, like tying your shoe if you don't know how to do it is hard. Learning a language if you don't know a word is hard. Like playing the piano is hard. Like writing if you right-handed and you break your wrist with your left hand is hard. Like everything is hard. Making a shirt is hard. Like you can make an excuse for everything being hard, but what's easy? Like name something that's easy. Most people couldn't give you what's easy.
I can tell you something that's
Complaining.
easy.
That's the
I
only
can
thing
tell you
that's
what's
easy.
easy. I know what's easy, Carmen. 30 years old, coming out from mama basement at 3 in the afternoon, getting high and getting drunk with friends, and, being hypersexual towards
Mhm.
everything and making that the primary goal and focus of your day. That's easy. But it's hard,
Mhm.
Carmen, like you just said, it's hard to get up at 6, 7 in the morning and go to a job that you
Mhm.
really don't want to be there because you're hustling towards a goal and work around people that you may not even necessarily like or get along with. And then you got to pay the
Exactly.
gas bill, the light bill, the rent, the mortgage, the car note, the
Mhm.
insurance.
Mhm.
Plus, you need to
Mhm.
be there for your kids emotionally. You know what I mean? You got to be there for
Yes.
them. You got to be patient with. That's hard to do, right? That's very
Mhm.
hard to do.
Exactly.
If
Mhm.
it was that easy to do what you want to do in life, everybody would be doing what they want to do in life. That's why everybody's not doing what they want to do in life because it's not that easy. You're absolutely right,
Yes.
Carmen. Everybody's good at something, but everybody's not great. Everybody's not great because it takes work to
Mhm.
be great. You got to put in that work. You got to put in that
Mhm.
work to be great. You got to. We all got the same
Mhm.
24 hours in a day. What are you
Exactly.
focused on? What's a priority for you within that 24 hours, Johnny? What's your priority? Is it, excuses about what somebody ain't giving you? All the
Mhm.
opportunities, go create one for yourself.
Mhm.
You
Exactly.
smart. I'm telling you
Exactly.
that you're smart. You're
Exactly.
beyond smart. You are intelligent. Go create
Yes.
an opportunity for yourself. The minute you
Mhm.
start walking towards life, man, it'll walk towards you. But if you a person that got a negative attitude, you're pessimistic about life, you done burned your bridges with every member of your family, it's going to be a challenge in order for you to win people over to your side to let them see
Yes.
that hey, you have changed, you have 360, and you can not 360, 180, because you can do this in this thing called
Yes.
life. Anything
Exactly.
you want to do, you can do it. If not, you're going to make an excuse as to why you can't get it done.
Mhm.
This all
Mhm.
applies to emotional intelligence. I promise you. I'm not deviating. We are not deviating from the topic. All of this
No,
is
literally
huge when it comes to emotional intelligence.
intertwined.
Yes.
And I would even add, if you aren't really well at emotional intelligence, then you'll have what's called negative emotional residue. So
Oh,
that's
okay. You got to expand on that, Carmen.
illness, yeah, illness and like strained relationships. So you basically, it's like a, if you think about math, addition and subtraction, basic. So positive, negative. If you have a surplus of positive, then you'll have a positive emotional overflow, which is basically your emotional residue. So like happiness, good health, good relationships, prosperity, and growth. But if you have more negative emotions, resentment, anger, failure, disappointment, guilt, like I'm reading off the my notes, bitterness, like even obligation, they list as one. Imagine obligation. That's us not being able to set boundaries to say, no, I have a lot on my plate. I can't deal with you because I'm, for lack of a better word, effed up. And it's like we want to fix everybody else. Like, give the analogy again of my house being on fire and yours. Like, I'm trying to help you put yours out, but I'm losing everything in the background. Like, I'm
Mm,
helping you out, and then what if you get your house and it's okay? Well, thanks, Carmen. Go home, and you know I have no home because I was helping you with your home and mine burned because we saw the ashes fell when we finished putting your furniture outside because you didn't have insurance. Even though I have insurance, like my house, you let it burn with me
mm.
because we got
No,
all your things out because you didn't have much. And then I asked, could you help me? And you said, oh well, you're tired. You didn't feel like it. So whose fault is that? And it's like, well, don't take it personal. Like, allow a person to behave how they need to, and let your physiological responses or features, which are your emotions, let that stay the same. Don't let how you feel based on their behavior change, because you end up having negative emotional residue. And it's like all of that stuff is what you, if you want to be sick, if you would love to possibly have cancer and all those negative things that are associated with stress, it's like have your emotional residue be negative. Like let it be like negative 150. Go negative Kelvin. What is it? Negative 200 degrees Celsius or something like that, whatever Fahrenheit. Be that way. But don't let it rain on, like Tabitha Brown, that one vegan lady on Instagram. It's like if you
yeah, I
can't
know you were
have
highlighting
a
that.
good
I like
day,
that.
don't
Yeah.
go mess up nobody else. And we also want to do that. Well, I'm mad, so you got to be pissed off too. No, no, keep that energy over there. I'm smiling over here. Like you can go be Oscar the Grouch over there in your own garbage can.
No, I think you push a great point with that, Carmen. You're absolutely right.
Mhm,
You're 100%
mhm,
correct, man. Like
mhm.
you get to choose how you respond to life and other people
Literally,
when you
literally.
come across and encounter challenges and obstacles. You get to choose and respond how you do that. And developing a deeper level of emotional intelligence will open you up to see things in a much different light in your everyday
Exactly.
interaction with people. And
Exactly.
I'm not a negative person, I'm not a pessimistic person, but I'll make a disclaimer to this and I'll say the majority of people that you're going to come across will be takers, will be button
Literally.
pushers, will be the people that would rather take from you than to give and assist without any form of consciousness. And it took me a long time to get to that point to accept that.
Mhm.
Because I was definitely a naive person. Like I used to think to myself, like, man, don't nobody come to work to make somebody have a bad day or to, really get on other people's nerves.
Mhm.
Nobody who would do that. Like, come on, man, that's
A
ludicrous.
lot of
And then,
You
until
met
I,
some.
yeah, and I had those experiences. I remember a colleague of mine, I promise you, Carmen, this kind of blew my mind. And this is
Mhm.
just a general conversation. This was just a general
Mhm.
conversation. She had gave me a call, was asking me a question, like so. I pick up hey, blah 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 blah, and I was like, and my usual standards, hey, how you doing today? No complaints, blah blah blah. And she said, no, I'm just trying to see who I can piss off today. Now that was
Oh,
just
wow.
casually said. It was just
I'm
casually
like, "Oh,
said.
the weather."
But knowing her personality, I pondered upon
Mhm.
that. I was like really kind
Mhm.
of in the depth of my thoughts, like, man, this individual is really going through some things and need a hug. She is very bitter and upset and angry. Now, emotional intelligence, Carmen, I don't want to deviate. In the
Yeah.
work environment,
Mhm.
a lot of times people have a difficult time with separating their personal life from their work life.
Yeah.
She done got into an argument with her husband at home the night
Mhm.
before. His wife then cursed him out. His kids, then did something. The money ain't right, and now his mother-in-law got to live with him, and it's just a lot. So that
Yeah.
comes into the work environment and bleeds over,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
affects their performance and how they interact with other
Exactly.
people. Emotional
Exactly.
intelligence, Carmen. Now, if
Mhm.
you are not aware of this reality of what people go through in life,
Mhm.
you will
Mhm.
react negatively to that person and the behavior that they exhibit towards you in a work environment, which will cause you a lot of stress, chaos, and
Mhm.
unnecessary HR trips and visits where now you're not wanting to go to work, you're calling off all the
Mhm.
time, your stomach's
Exactly.
hurt because it's stressing you out. Now it's
Mhm.
affecting you,
Mhm.
and your health. So you got to be
Exactly.
more open to seeing these things for what there are. I'm sorry, for
Mhm.
what they actually are, and know how to
Mhm.
navigate these work environments. And I'm telling you, this all applies to having a high level of emotional intelligence in your interacting with people.
Exactly. I would even add emotional sensitivity, like being able to gauge. It's like almost like if you were cooking meat for the first time and you were afraid of
Okay.
salmonella. Just say it's chicken. So you're like, I'm gonna get a meat thermometer. They say 160 degrees. Okay. And you put it in, it's like 152. But it's hot. But if you eat the chicken, you might get salmonella. Like you need to make sure that it's like the minimum requirement for it to be cooked properly to kill it is 160. So you it need to at least be there. And a lot of us are like, but it's almost there. And we take things away or we go into relationships before we're at our cook point. And it's like we wonder
Mm.
why we raw. We wonder why we coming out undone. And it's like because we went in with pieces and then we expect it to be fixed in a relationship. And it's like, but we don't even know ourselves. And we expect the other person to like understand us. Like, this not Romeo and Juliet. That was a script based on an act. And they were portraying people in love. Like, we got to learn how to do that to ourselves first. Like, love yourself first. Put energy into self first. Have that gauged or the barometer working for you to know, hmm, I don't have like I follow this girl on Instagram and it's like she says when she don't have the capacity, I don't have the capacity. Whether it's to deal with friends, telling drama, telling the same sad stories, woe is me, bitter is my best friend. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Did you ask me? Could I listen to a story? No. Emotional intelligence is basically saying, I don't have the capacity to be drained more so than I
Mhm.
already am. I'm gonna take this time and disconnect myself, whether it's not answering, whether it's being on do not disturb, airplane mode, taking a walk, isolating from people who you know are just draining from you. That's emotional intelligence. Telling your spouse that you don't like him talking to women on the internet, that's emotional intelligence because you want to maybe say married to him and not end up an episode of Snapped or Forensic Files.
Wow. That was a deep one. It goes deep with that. I think, hey, you better get some emotional intelligence. Like,
Like yesterday.
yeah, like, come on. Yeah. Nah,
But it's so
that's
true.
yeah, that
It's
is
so true,
true.
and
That is
it's
true.
sad at the same time. But it's going through school for me was a self learning experience, and now I'm at the teaching point because it was like I had so many eye opening experiences. Like, wait a minute, emotional intelligence. Wait, so IQ isn't the only intelligence that we have? And it's like,
Mhm.
no, it's not. There's so many other different areas of intelligence, and like emotion should be what they teach first. Like my nephew's 5 and I'm teaching him like this is what it feels like when you're angry. Like when he gets told no and doesn't like it and the tantrums like come out. This is what it feels like when you can't have your way. This is anger. This is irritability. This is frustration. So when you become a teenager, you're not like, what's all this chaos on the inside? And you destroying property, you knocking people out, you robbing people to kind of
Mhm.
feel or decrease that feeling of chaos that you could have kind of had remedy earlier. But then it also comes with having parents who are emotionally intelligent. And most of our parents, let's just say y'all was dumb.
Mhm.
Y'all didn't know nothing. Y'all didn't teach us how to do anything outside of be the same.
Makes
And
sense.
we
No,
have
I
to
get what
learn
you're
how to
saying.
get past that.
Nope, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's why I'll
Mhm.
reiterate that I think as parents, me, you
Mhm.
know, grateful of the
Yeah.
wisdom and the experiences that I
Mhm.
had to bring me to this point in my
Mhm.
life. Like I really value being a parent, especially because I think that it's important that you do invest in your children. Like it's
Yes.
extremely important that you invest in your kids and their well
Mhm.
being. It's extremely important. Like so, this emotional intelligence thing again for the parents who listening. And I'm not telling you that I write a book about parenting or mine is the end all be all and I'm some super God
Mhm.
exceptional parent. No, that's not the
Yeah.
case in that sense whatsoever. But I'm a great parent in that sense. I will say
Mhm.
that, meaning that I think it's important that you do develop a understanding of human development, and emotional intelligence is
Yes.
one of them. Remember, the
Yes.
brain isn't fully developed until what age? 25, right? So
Yes.
you may be talking
Yes.
to your 7-year old, your 6-year old, your 10-year old, your
Mhm.
13-year old
Mhm.
and you think that they are interpreting what you're saying as a 30-year-old because you're 30. You think that they're interpreting as a 40-year-old because you're 40
Mhm.
and that they're
Mhm.
getting the gist of what it is that you're
Mhm.
saying
Mhm.
when they're not
Exactly.
9 times out of
Mm-mm.
10. Like children are sponges, so they're absorbing the environment.
Mhm.
They're mimicking
Exactly.
the environment in which they are
Exactly.
being brought up in, right? So you have to be
Mhm.
very careful with that. And I remember there was a time where my son was going to a whole nother school, not the one that he goes to now.
Mhm.
And he came
Mhm.
and he was super young then. He told me that the little girl who was in his classroom was always whispering about him and
Mhm.
making smart negative remarks, or if he
Mhm.
came into the class late or he bought jello or a peanut butter and jello, like she always would gossip
Yeah.
about him and say stuff to the other kids about him. And I said, you know
Mhm.
what, son? That's because her mom and daddy do that about other people. That's where she got that behavior from. There's no other place
It's
that she got that
true.
behavior
Yeah.
from is
Mhm.
from her environment. And it's funny
Learned
because
behavior.
my son is 11 and my daughter's 7, but I promise you, now if you talk to them, like they're a little bit intelligent in terms of dealing with challenges and adversity.
Mhm.
And when people kind of nitpick at them, they
Mhm.
kind of get it because I do tell them these type of things.
Yeah, you prepared
Maybe
them.
look, and I don't know how this will turn out when they're
Yeah.
adults. I'll
Yeah.
tell them.
Yeah.
I'll always relate
Yeah.
it back. You know why they do that? Because
Yeah.
that's what because they mom and
Yeah.
daddy do.
Yeah. It's like the 4th of
That's
July.
the
It's
reason
like,
why.
"Look, these are fireworks. Watch. This is an explosion. This is what it looks like. See the colors?" Like, that's how we have to teach our
You,
kids, I
you
believe.
have to.
I
You
don't
have
have
to,
kids,
man. You
but
have to be patient with them. You
yeah.
got to be very
Yeah.
patient with your kids. And I know that's hard. When they're young, they do a lot of things, but you
Mhm.
have to be patient. And in my most humble opinion, it's just an opinion. It's just an opinion, okay? Please don't take this personal to anybody. It's just an opinion.
Don't
I
hate
don't
us.
think that we should be having kids anyway till you're like 35, 40 years old. Because I think that
Mhm.
you're going to be much more patient. You're going to have something to actually offer and teach them through your own experience. And then you're not really still trying to play catch up in life when you're young and having kids. I'm not saying that there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. There are exceptional human beings
Mhm.
who do it very
Mhm.
well when they're young. However, I'm just
Mhm.
saying it could be a little bit more difficult. It could be a little bit more challenging. If you're working a lot, you're not able to spend a lot of time with them in those much needed moments, which help you kind of
Mhm.
bond with your kids and develop a very tight
Mhm.
relationship. How many of us as adults, how many of us really have a true bond and connection with our parents? Now, but let me say this too, in our
Mhm.
environment, because I know the way that
Mhm.
we grew up was a little bit maybe different from
Mhm.
how others
Mhm.
in this
Mhm.
world grew up. So
Mhm.
I'm going to go back and
Mhm.
relate this to our environment that we really have like
Mhm.
this really close bonded relationship with our
Mhm.
parents. I see people that I've interacted with over the years, and I see how
Mhm.
they are so loving and caring with their parents, and they're adults.
Mhm.
So I knew that
Yeah.
stemmed from their childhood when they running up still holding on their mama neck, and they 35 years old and they mama 65, and it's all, you could just tell. Like, I couldn't do
Mhm.
that. I can't even tell you. But I know for a fact when I was young, I never went up to my mom and was holding on her neck and sitting on her lap or nothing like that. And and if
Yeah.
my mom probably gave me a hug, I would probably be like, oh, okay, like, yeah. Even from my dad, same thing. Like, hey,
Like,
because
happy
he never,
birthday, happy
yeah,
graduation,
exactly. But for my
Merry
kids, man, it's
Christmas.
just like regular. It's just like regular. I'm glad I didn't get too affected
Mhm.
by that. Where when my daughter
Yeah,
runs up on me, hugging on me, dragging on me,
yeah.
pulling me, my son giving him
Mhm.
kisses and hugs and stuff till he just can't stand it.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. Like, I want that. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
what's needed in order for them to identify with what love is when they get older. So they'll know what that feels
Mhm.
like when they have kids, to be able to
Mhm.
share that same type of emotion with them and
Yeah.
have that same type
Yeah.
of connection with them without it
Mhm.
kind of getting lost in transition over time,
Yeah.
because you never took the time to kind of develop and build that bond with our kids.
Mhm. Mhm. So let me ask you this question, Nancy. So would you say that your childhood and your upbringing, you had to be more emotionally intelligent to be able to change the way that you may have saw love or your interpretation of love growing up and give something different to your kids?
Most definitely. I think for me, looking back on it, that I developed emotional intelligence at an early age. I think of sharing
Mhm.
that understanding, like the story of Antoine Fisher, when he mentioned that
Mhm.
one part where if he smelled bacon, he knew that,
Mm.
it was going to be
It's
a
good.
good day. If he smelled pine saw, he knew to stay inside the room, don't come out until the afternoon.
Mhm.
That's emotional
Mhm.
intelligence, right?
Yeah,
That's emotional
exactly.
intelligence, being able to
Yeah.
read another person, to know how to
Yes.
interact with them based upon their
Exactly.
behavior.
Exactly. Mhm.
So yeah, I would say that early on through,
Mhm.
the relationship with my mother, my father, my siblings, my aunts and uncles, and things like that.
Mhm.
My teachers, just kind of knowing, like, I know if I do this or they don't like that, that it's going to lead to
Mhm.
this right here. And being
Mhm.
able to see that, knowing like when my
Mhm.
mom may be in a very bad mood, or my dad
Mhm.
may not want to talk, or he may be
Mhm.
upset but just not telling me, or I'm gonna get on
Mhm.
punishment or whatever it is. You got
Mhm.
to be able to see it in order to avoid
Mhm.
it, to be able to get out of it, or know to be able to brace yourself for
Mhm.
the consequences of what's going to come behind their anger towards something that you did or you may not even have, known that you've done. Remember, I was telling you that as adults, how we at times have this, well, you should know. You should
Exactly.
know not to do that. You should know how to
Mhm.
treat me. In the environment that we grew up in, we kind of got it even worse. Like, we were expected. My brother shared this with me one time. He was like, "Man, I remember I got in trouble, and because I didn't wash the dishes the right way, but they never even showed me how to wash the dishes." So I thought back on it like, "Yo, that's real. That's real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Or
real."
the other
So that was one
side.
of those emotional
Mhm.
intelligent moments. From that point, my brother
Exactly.
kind of learned, like, hey, I think I should. And with no YouTube to teach how to wash the dishes, right? You
Mhm.
just stood there
Mhm.
for hours and looked at it, dumped it, and put it back. Like, I hope this is clean and I don't get in trouble for this one right here.
Yeah, I know the pain. My mom would take she would look at the forks in between the teeth, and if it wasn't clean, she'd just throw it back in the sink. Like, just tell me it's not clean. You don't have to just. I thought that was such an aggressive move. You're just gonna throw it as I'm washing. You just throw it in the sink.
See,
So I
but
guess I had to
isn't
learn
that
to be
emotional
emotionally
intelligence for you?
intelligent. Yeah,
See,
because I had to learn how to adjust my behavior because I was very defensive. So I had to learn if I wanted to avoid getting my ass whooped to not respond with
now,
negative
Carmen, I want to
behavior.
know, ask you a question. Now, how does that carry over
Mhm.
into your adult life, into your career, and how you interact in
Mhm.
your work environment?
You mean like as far as like my emotional intelligence or like my old previous? Yeah. So having to be aware of emotions is one thing that I had to learn early on. And I was always aware of other people's feelings. I call it early empathy, call it old soul intuition, whatever you like. And I always had that understanding, like I could feel your feelings, specifically if you talk to me. So I just kind of like honed in on that part of it. And asking people like, is what I'm seeing, is it matching what I'm thinking, to kind of almost like help me advance my way of understanding people and their behaviors? Because at home, I know how people look pissed off, I know how people look frustrated, I know how they look when they irritated, but I don't know how people look when they're happy consistently. I didn't know joy, I didn't know like all those like surprise is a good thing. All I knew was like surprise was meant like you getting your ass whooped when mama came through the door and you didn't know what
Mm,
time she was coming home. So it's like, oh, car
yeah.
pulled up, surprise.
Looking out the window,
So
y'all done hit the blinds since 3 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. Y'all done looked at
exactly.
the blinds about
Exactly.
15 times
Exactly.
from 3 o'clock to
Exactly.
9 o'clock, checking if she out there.
Literally. So now look at I had to learn how to adjust to others' behaviors by adjusting how I am. And it's like once I started adjusting how I am, then it's like, well, I'm the gauge. I'm the one that determines how other people are. How people now they think of me as like, oh, well, you always so happy go lucky. Like you like the standard for like everybody. I'm like, I'm not the unicorn. Like I'm putting in work to be this happy. Like this is daily effort here that you
Mhm.
seeing. Because it's like the body. Give this example. Like in order for the heart to make one contraction, it starts in a negative resting state. So in order for the heart to make one beat, it has to put energy into itself in order to get over that hump. Let's just call it depolarization, which is what it is. Which is you think of it as a roller coaster to get over that hump to give your body energy. So if our body in its basic elemental state has to produce energy on its own, why can't we do it with ourselves? And that's what I tell myself when I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Oh, like, because I told myself we're running every day unless we have, God forbid, an injury or something that actually prevents me from like physically doing it. Do I want to get up and run 7 days a week, at least 3 miles? Do I know the health benefits that it has to have potentially for me? Yes. So I'm making that sacrifice to be disciplined regardless. Like I'm not giving myself an outlet. Whether it's raining, I've been rained on, I've been hailed on, I've been snowed on. Like I'm not giving myself an excuse. So it's like if I'm not giving myself an excuse for my fitness, then so when summertime come, I'm already body goals. And it's winter time, I was body goals all year for myself. So I don't have to prepare how a lot of people have to prepare because I'm already ready for work. Like Kobe say, I'm getting up early to put in work just so I can try to compete on a level that people think is the same. But it's like, no, greatness requires harder work, not hard work, harder work.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mhm.
So what type of advice conversation can you have with a person who's really battling with anger? They have a difficult time in
Mhm.
uh, communicating and interacting in all of their
Mhm.
relationships, from their significant other to their children
Mhm.
to their
Mhm.
coworkers to strangers.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're always on alert in terms of
Mhm.
providing negative feedback and
Mhm.
confrontation in any type of exchange.
Well, what I would say that first, you're not alone. Like we all have emotions that may be in extreme cases, whether it's extreme sadness or extreme happiness. Like we're human, so be aware of that. That's self awareness, and then being aware of your triggers. If you know road rage pisses you off, don't drive while you're already mad, unless you have to, because it's almost like you're intensifying the effect that you don't want to have. And it's like if you don't want to intensify the effect that you don't want to have, don't do stuff you don't want to do. And that's a part
Mhm.
of it. A lot of times we tell ourselves, well, they really need me to do this. Well, it really would help somebody else. But what about you? And that's what emotional intelligence is being aware of you, knowing your triggers, knowing what makes you upset, knowing the things that would calm you down. Like we know what pisses us off, but we don't know the steps to take to calm ourselves down. Like video diary. That's the thing that I started doing
Mm.
in school. It's like I didn't feel like writing. Like I know I'm a writer, I love writing, but sometimes I don't physically like the act of writing. I'm lazy sometimes. So I'll take my phone, stick up my tripod or whatever, and I just press record and I speak. Today I'm feeling, today I'm aware of this. This is what I'm learning. This is what I need help with. Like tears, hey, act to your phone. Tell your phone how you feel and play it back and be like, that day we weren't doing well. What can we do to make ourselves better tomorrow? And stop focusing on the future. Like, if you want to be spiritual, God gives us today. Tomorrow got its own stuff. Like, you can die tonight. So, why plan for tomorrow or next week, next year? Yes, be prepared, but don't. be hell bent on like, I got to do this tomorrow. I got to, like, you have time. The Lord even made a week, he gave himself to make the world, which he could have done like that. So if the whole creator, if you think of it that way, took time, why are we rushing? Like, we the created and we rushing. We have to take that time and be self-aware and saying, like, you know what, I don't have the capacity to deal with that, and being aware of like, what do I have the capacity to deal with? Make a list, become aware of your triggers, things that will calm you down, things that rev you up, and actually look at it. Because we'll make a list and it's like, okay, well, I made a list, okay, but I'm not calming down. Are you looking at the list? Are you actually doing the work daily? Because a lot of people say, well, I journaled the other day. Okay, but that was Monday and today's Friday, and you ain't did nothing every, like, you've been getting pissed off every day, and you've done nothing since the first day. Like, you got to do it, especially when you don't feel like it. Like, when the days I don't feel like working out, I make sure I work out on those days. I
Mm.
make sure. So the same thing, the days that you don't feel like doing something, you do it. If you sign a contract for a job working 40 hours, you're not gonna be, well, I only feel good 20 hours at a time, so I'm only gonna do 20. Well, hopefully it's not one of those states where they got free will, because you may not be on the schedule next month because they might fire your ass. Like, you gotta be willing to do the work and put the time in. We want the time, but we don't want to put the work in. Like, they go together. And emotional intelligence goes with, like, your IQ, like your actual intelligence of your brain. Like, they go together because they all come from the same spot. Like, we want to separate everything, but it's like we learning the pieces to put it together. Like, yes, we have a heart, we have two lungs, we have two kidneys, but we only have one body. Like, it gets, if you get unfortunately shot in the head, everything else dies. So, like, if you think of it as the body and pieces together as opposed to all these separate entities, it makes it easy to digest because you think of, okay, well, I'm doing these things for my body. Yes, they're separate, but it's all for the overall purpose of getting better, getting greater. And we have to think of it as getting better, getting greater.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. There's a lot. As you guys can see,
Hmm.
there's a lot that kind of goes with this. And this isn't like
Yeah.
something that's easy to, it happens and you're gonna snap your fingers and wake up in the morning and everything change. It does take
Hmm.
consistency. You know, it
Yes.
takes discipline in changing your thought patterns because you know your thought patterns
Hmm.
kind of affect your behavior. There's the saying, I want you guys to hear this, right? Whatever thoughts and actions you had and took in the past has placed
Mm.
you in this present moment in time. Wherever you're at, whatever your current circumstances is in your life, whatever your thoughts and actions are in the present moment will determine where you'll be in the future. So if
Exactly.
in this present moment you got a lot of BS on your mind, a lot of negativity, that's what the future holds for you. Whatever you were thinking about in the past, whatever you were thinking about, you thought about it, and then from that thought, you took action. And that action placed you where your present circumstances. Again, here's an example.
Mm-hmm.
Before you had that job that you have right now, maybe you were at another job. And while you were at that other job, or you didn't have a job, and you were thinking, man, I need to get a job, or I need to change jobs.
Hmm.
That
Exactly.
thought came to you. So something may have transpired and it gave you that thought. And you thought to
Hmm.
yourself, I need another job or I need to get a job. So in order to do that, you had to complete and fill out an application,
Exactly.
right? That was the action.
Hmm.
And from that action, they called you in, they interviewed you, and you accepted, you said yes. And now that placed you in this present moment in time while you're working at that job based
Hmm.
upon your thoughts and your actions of the past. So,
Exactly.
whatever your thoughts and your actions are in this present moment will determine where you will be in the future. So, right now, we want to work on creating positive thoughts so we can start taking positive actions, positive steps
Exactly.
towards the
Yes.
life that we want. You got to get out of the mental habit of comparing and contrasting yourself and your progress
Hmm.
to what's around you and what you see other people doing because
Exactly.
that's their path.
Hmm.
That's their purpose in their life. That's not yours. Now, it's okay to look left and right from time to time to be inspired, but we
Exactly.
should never be following another man's or another woman's thoughts and ideas and what it is that's working for them so much.
Hmm.
You got to have your own ways of thinking and being, and not adopting someone else's ways of thinking and being in this life. This is emotional intelligence. See,
Exactly.
that could also be the cause of what's causing us a lot of stress, a lot of
Mhm.
anxiety, a lot of frustration,
Mhm. Mhm.
because we're picking up on what other people are doing, what other people are
Mhm.
thinking and speaking. You think that that's working for you, and
Mhm.
you're being influenced by that. Again,
Mhm.
our whole podcast topic is unnecessary programming, right? So you got to
Mhm.
really focus on this on a much, much, much deeper level when it comes to your well being and who you are and the person that you're trying to be. What's that saying, Carmen, where in order to get to a space that you've never been in mentally and
You gotta do
emotionally,
something. Mhm.
that you've never done, right?
Mhm.
You got to make changes, even when it's
Exactly.
uncomfortable. You can't be afraid
Especially.
of that.
Mhm. I would say especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's the time when you don't want to do anything. Think about the biggest thing. Everybody wants to get into fitness now, and it's like, how do you do it if you've never done it? To use, oh, well, I don't know how to do it, so I just won't start. And that's a lot of our mindsets. It's like, oh, well, you can get in the car, you can find a gym, you can go online, you can find a gym, you can actually go outside. Like I call them fire hydrant push-ups because I'm not a gym gal. And I will literally be outside on the street doing push-ups on the fire hydrant or sidewalk squats or light pole lunges, mute doing lunges from the distance of one light pole to the next because I don't like the gym. So I make outside work for me. I go to the park, I run, I do laps, I chase cars. That's the way I learned how to sprint because I didn't like running at first. So it's like, well, if I make myself seem like I'm chasing traffic, then it makes it easy and a little competitive. Do I ever win? Sometimes. The old cars, yes, but the new modern ones, not so much.
Wow. Nah, man, those are good tips, though, Carmen. Like, that's a great, thanks for sharing that, right? Like, you're sharing like your own personal
Mm,
successes and things that it took
yeah.
that places you
Mhm.
in your frame of mind where
Yeah.
you become more motivated. But that works for you, right?
Mhm.
That works for you,
Exactly.
right? It works well for you,
Exactly.
right? And you
Mhm.
came up with that on
Exactly.
your own. So
Exactly.
you're listening to
Trial and
this.
error.
This
Mhm.
and again, the same thing applies for the listener who's
Mhm.
in that space right now, mentally and emotionally.
Mhm.
You come up with your own
Mhm.
thing that works for you.
Exactly. Trial and error. That's how you learn. If you learn how to do math, let's just say how it is. I don't know many people who the first time from year one all the way through college, the first math problem, the first attempt, you got every last one of them right. Same thing with life. You got to try again. That's why math usually is done in pencil for a reason. So you
Yep.
can erase and try again. Most
It-
people who do it in pen, if you grew up like I did, you got in trouble because who does math in pen was my mother's response. What if you make a mistake? And a lot of times it's like, well, it's permanent. No, it's not. Like the way that you grow up and, well, my mama, I'm like this because my mama. No, you're not. Like you may have picked up traits like your mother said, right? But you're not her. Like she didn't spit you out and you were like a replica of her. No. And we tell ourselves these like stories of like, well, no, I can't change because I don't know how to. Well, stop the mindset of I can't, that's one, and say I am. Like affirm yourself. This is why affirmations are a new thing, which technically is not. It's like the old philosophical Socratic thinking, or Socrates, whatever. His way of thinking is like if I be my best self, then can't nobody shake me. Like be unshakable. And we
yeah.
we think of, and that's why faith comes so strong for so many people. It's like, well, I can't have that myself. So I lean on something that's greater than myself. And we have to think of it that way. It's like, okay, well, other people are already away from us in the sense that I can't be them. I can only be myself. So think of it that way. Like I'm away from people. I can't be them. I can just be myself. But you have to be understanding to the fact that it's going to take time to know who you are. You're not going to
hmm
wake up tomorrow and be like, yes, I know what I want to do. Look, I found the letter I wrote 17 years ago when I was 20, and I was in the letter I was talking to somebody and I was saying, I don't know what I want to do with myself. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And look at me now. I've figured it out. It's like you got to learn what works for you, trial and error. Like literally try and try again.
Yeah.
If you can't
When you go to
try,
the
like
store, you found a new
ask
pair
for,
of shoes, right? You got to put on a couple of
yeah.
pairs. before you find the
Exactly.
right fit for you. When you go out and you go
Exactly.
shopping, you put on that sweater, you try that jacket on a couple of times, right? Because you wanna make sure you get the
Yeah.
one that fits you the right way.
Exactly.
Same thing
Exactly.
with life.
Nobody
Same thing
yeah.
with life.
Exactly.
You're not gonna
Exactly.
always get
But
on that first mark.
just like in the wintertime, when everybody goes to the stores in the summer and our feelings are hurt that the size of last year no longer applies, we know what we got to do. Put in some work.
Mhm. That is true. That is true. No, that is true. That is true, man.
Yeah.
There's this life. I don't think. Again, I want to say this. I don't think life is good. I think it's great. I think it's amazing, man. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
Like the metamorphosis that we can go through and
Mm.
transform ourselves as humans. Like to me, it's just
Exactly.
amazing. It's a beautiful thing. To me, it's like even undescribable in words when you
Mm.
see yourself really come from something. I'm sorry, come from nothing
Mhm.
to something, or come
Yeah.
from a bad space to a great space.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
and it was you who did it, like, you really put in the work, like, you really
Mm.
changed people's perception and
Mm.
expectations of what they thought you were, who they
Yeah.
thought you were, into something that
Mhm.
nobody would have ever in a million years imagined that you would be. That's a beautiful
Exactly.
feeling. It is, and
It
it
really
can be
is.
done, but again, the mindset, your thoughts, and how you see things,
Exactly.
being able to regulate your emotions is tied directly to your perception of yourself and your perspective
Exactly.
of the things that you go to I'm sorry, that you go through in your everyday experiences.
Yes. And I would even add like your ability to cope. Let's just call it. I know we tapping a little bit sideline, but defense mechanisms fall into this emotional intelligence because you have to be aware of your defenses. And my little, I guess, key tool, like arsenal, like tricks or whatever you want to call it, is humor. Like I laugh to like diffuse the situation because imagine you get into a situation. I think I heard Dave Chappelle's, I think it was him, I may be wrong, but he said that's how he got through life when he went through rough neighborhoods because he wasn't a fighter. It's like he learned to be funny. So it's like nobody wanted to beat up the funny person. So I took that and I applied it elsewhere because like everybody feels a little bit better. Like I'm that person on the elevator that's like nobody fired just because that awkward silence. Like just let me break the ice, make people feel a little bit more comfortable, and that's what it's about. It's like everybody's so uptight, and it's like learn how to fart and get it out. Like let's just relax. And a lot of us just feel it with so much gas, and it's like learn to let it out. It's gonna come
No,
out anyway. Just be yourself and just let it flow.
nope, you are 100% correct and accurate.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
actually analogy what you just described. I'll share this with our listeners too. And the reason why I
Mhm.
can speak about this and feel as though I'm an expert in this area when it comes to emotional intelligence, and I'll just use my own personal experience. I remember for me,
Mhm.
young, when I was a teenager, and the path and the trajectory that I was on in my life, like it was horrible. I was a very negative person, very negative, pessimistic person. I can even remember at a particular point in time having a conversation with a friend of mine who's no longer here in his life experience. And we were just riding around, and I was telling him how I thought life was so boring,
Mm.
how life was just so boring. Like
Mm.
most of my interactions were negative. Again, I told you I've been
Mm.
to like 4 different high schools, had never graduated, went to like 6
Mhm.
different elementary schools,
Mhm.
had a rough time with my mother, relationship, had a rough time with my father,
Mhm.
relationship, being out in the streets, just
Mhm.
interacting. You couldn't have told me when I was younger that I wouldn't be killed early in the environment that I grew up
Mm.
in just because of my behavior pattern and my mouth and the
Mm.
words that used to come out of my mouth, how I you couldn't tell me anything. I wouldn't listen
Yeah.
to anybody whatsoever.
Mm.
Very negative, got into a lot of trouble when I was young, a lot of trouble,
Yeah.
been shot, been stabbed. I've been
Mm.
through a lot in my life.
Yeah.
And again, I
Yeah.
can speak highly on this change in emotional intelligence because I know that once I became aware, it allowed me, it was me, it was me. It was nobody else's
Mhm.
fault. It was nobody else's problem but my own. And I had to
Mm.
accept that. And I'll
Mhm.
share with you guys one pivotal moment. There was a point in time where I was in school, and it was a close friend of mine. And when you're in school, they have those motivational posters all over the wall. in school where somebody's on a
Mhm.
mountain
Yeah.
and then if they get to the
Yeah.
top or,
Adventurous.
somebody's
Yeah.
running a group of people and it'd be like
Yep.
teamwork. But you just giving you
Mhm.
guys a picture. I know every school
Yeah.
has these
Yeah.
motivational pictures
Yeah.
inside of the school. Now, there
Mhm.
was this one particular picture, and the picture was simple of a glass of water halfway full.
Mhm.
And I stared at that picture while we were in the hallway. Never forget this moment, a defining moment. And I'm asking my friend, and I said, "Man, why that picture? What that picture mean? Why I just got a glass of water?" And he said, "All right, do you think the glass is half empty or half full?" And
Mm.
I said, "Oh man, that glass half empty." And he said, "Well, that means you have a negative, pessimistic outlook on life. Because if you
Yeah.
would have said it was half full, that means you automatically think positive.
Mm.
You have
Yeah.
an optimistic,
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
outlook on life." And it was an aha moment. I said to myself, like, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be pessimistic. That can't be me.
So you have
But
competitiveness inside of you.
but my natural reaction to seeing that
Mhm.
glass of water, the first
Mhm.
thing was it's half empty.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that was my mindset.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah.
attitude towards life at
Mhm.
that time.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was one of the defining moments where it hit me. Like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm really negative. I'm really pessimistic
Yeah.
about this life thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that way. I
Yeah.
didn't
So
want to be that way. I did not want to be that way. I was
mhm.
adamant of change at that particular
Mhm.
moment. Like I would not be that way. I just knew it.
Mhm.
And then we were in I think it was a student development class, and we had to write some type of assignment. This was like the first year
Mhm.
in a community
Mhm.
college.
Mhm.
And one of the questions was, what could someone say to you
Mhm.
that would make you, happy or something like that? And I wrote
Mhm.
down, someone could say to me, "You've changed."
Mm.
I never forget it.
Yeah. But I think
So
sometimes
that
it takes
moment of
those
having that mindset
mhm.
and attitude, the
Mhm.
pessimism,
Mhm.
I didn't want to be that way. And I was making a
Yeah.
conscious decision at that moment, like, oh,
Mhm.
that's not me. I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
like that. That's not me. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be negative. I'm not gonna be pessimistic.
Yeah.
I want people to be like, damn, you changed.
See, when you progress well through the stages of change when it comes to like making a decision, because a lot of times like contemplation of change is so hard for somebody because it's like all I see is bad. How do I see good? Like I give the analogy of something I've written before, and it's like, how do I color with colors if I only have a blue crayon? Like, I only have blue,
Mm.
so how can I make red? How can I color with purple? And a lot of us, we so stuck on like, well, I only have blue, and it's like, no, like you got like you got 168 crayons of color, but we've been programmed to think that you only have blue because that's all you know. But it's like if I never went to school, I wouldn't know all the stuff that I know now. And
Mm.
anybody, like a person that went to learn how to sing or go to church or like become a pastor or like anything that you can basically name, it took time to be those things, to get to those places and to do those things. And it's like, that's the one thing we want to hold on to, but that's the one thing we won't give ourselves. And it's like, that's like the saying, which it took me a very long time to understand. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. As a kid, and even as a teenager, see how my man was emotional intelligence was slow. It's like I never understood that. It's like, what do you mean you can't have your cake and eat it too? Like, don't you want to do that? But it means like you can't preserve it if you've eating it. And that's like, oh, like
Oh.
so simple. Like so simple. Like once I like at the age now, it's like that's so simple. But back then it's like I don't understand. I don't get it. So I sympathize and I empathize with everybody listening. Like it takes time. Like I was just reading something from 9 years ago of me asking myself to get better mentally because I felt I was not there. So it takes time to become emotionally intelligent, one, saying a word, and then being aware and saying like, okay, well, this is how I am, and this is how I would like to be, and see if they compare. Because a lot of times, how we are and where we want to be don't match. Like if I'm broke today and I want to be a millionaire in the future, I'm not gonna just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sit in the house and let the money come to me. Cause it's not gonna come. Like
Nope.
the
Nope.
publisher's clearinghouse guys not gonna be like, you've won, here's your check. Specifically if you've never entered a sweepstakes. But a lot of times we live in that lifestyle of like, instantaneous gratification. It's mm, like that doesn't work. Because even if you think of it in terms of like, sex and lust and stuff, like, yes, the body releases those hormones, but even that process builds up. Like, the body has to do a push pull in order to like get aroused and have an orgasm. Like, those two things have to be like working together, which is why a lot of people have like difficulties with sex, because you can get raised up, but you can't come back down, because a lot of people can't relax, and vice versa. Like, you can't get to the end result if you can't relax, because in order to have an orgasm, unfortunately, the body has to calm down. And a lot of people are stuck in being revved up, and it's like, I can't come. No, because your mind mentally is not even prepared to. So your
Yeah.
body's like, okay, I guess we're waiting for the okay. And it never comes. And
Yep.
it's like
I
that
do
just builds and
understand.
builds and builds. I know I'm using sex as an analogy, but that's because a lot of people, I'm sure, are familiar with that one. So it's like, if you change the way that you set things up, like a domino effect, if you set the first stone or domino to like be in alignment to make a transition to knocking the other ones down, then it will do so. But if you stack dominoes up like doors next to each other, like, how are they supposed to fall down in line? Like, you got
Yeah.
to go to each one. And it's like, if that's what it takes, then do it, but don't be willing, or don't give up. Be willing to keep trying. And that's all I can say. It's like, I never gave up on myself. Yeah, did I have emotional as F days? Of course. I mean, the body, I'm a seasonal person. I don't like seasons to change. At least my brain doesn't like it. So I learned to run in the off season, because I wasn't a runner in the wintertime. What did I do? I felt like crap in the winter, so we now run in the wintertime. So I made adjustments to it.
I think that's a great point to hit on. Just letting
Mhm.
people know that every day it's not going to be, such
Yeah,
a great day to motivate yourself to do certain
exactly.
things or to maintain a certain attitude. But again, like you were mentioning, there's several
Mhm.
aspects
Mhm.
that comes along with this change that we go through and the different
Mhm.
analogies and allegories that we share along the way.
Mhm.
It's just to
Mhm.
be more relatable. So
Yeah.
when you do reach these particular points where you may not have the mindset or the energy
Yeah.
to push throughout
Mhm.
that day, then it's okay. It's
Exactly.
all good. Like nobody's
Yeah.
perfect. Because trust me, guys,
Yeah.
there's plenty of days I wake up and be like, yo, this but it's not enough for me to
Left
obsess
foot,
over that.
right foot together.
Yeah, like, but it's not enough where I obsess over it and I can't
Yeah.
move forward when it
Yes.
comes to life and even when it comes to my career. Like, if
Mhm.
this is one thing about me too, and I would suggest if a person is in this position within their job or career to make sure that you're doing this as often as possible. Like,
Yes.
if I don't feel like going to work, I'm not going. Like, I call in sick. That don't mean that I'm physically sick. Like, I'm just sick of y'all right now. Like, I'm just not in
Mental
the
sickness
mood
counts.
for it, and it's okay. And it's
Yeah.
okay. But see, here's the thing
Yeah.
about me. If I show up to work, I'm gonna give you 100% with my attitude and all of my
Mhm.
interactions with you.
Mhm.
You ain't gonna
Yes.
never get a negative, nasty attitude or
Mhm.
interaction from me whatsoever.
Exactly.
If I'm not gonna go to work, I'm just not gonna come in. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna show up that day. I'm gonna stay at home because I'm not feeling that right now. And I think you should. You should
Yeah.
want to do that if you have sick days and things like that. Like I know people who have a ton of sick days saved. Like that's their thing. Not me. I'd
Yeah.
probably be in the negative with sick days and stuff like that because I will stay at home. I will. If
Yeah.
I'm not in it, I'm not
Mhm.
going to do it. I don't think if you're my colleague, Carmen, that I
Mhm.
should subject you to
Mhm.
my not feeling good for the day and still coming to the office and bring
Mhm.
that energy in there with me. Especially if I had to,
Mhm.
especially if I need to interact with people. Like I wouldn't want to do that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that you
Exactly.
should. You should definitely take, days off to yourself and just do some things that you want to do. Maybe you may not want to get out of the bed that day, or you may just want to work on your own personal things that day. Or you may just want to go out in the park or something on that day or something like that. Whatever it is, you should just go ahead and
Yeah.
do it. I don't think that you should get, so caught up in not wanting to take a day off because how people going to think, or you called off, or you let them down. Hey, it's just business.
Mhm.
It
Okay.
ain't personal. It's just business,
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever's in the context of business, it
Mhm.
can wait. Because I look at me being a little bit more important than whatever it is that
Mhm.
you're wanting me to do. at that particular point in
Mhm.
time. I think myself and how I feel about myself, if I'm not in the mood for it,
Mhm.
that I think it's best that I do stay at home and not come into the
Mhm.
office or interact with anybody because I probably wouldn't be of any good service to you. You probably would look at me
Mhm.
differently. You know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
being honest as a human, I think that's okay. Like,
Mhm.
don't get
Mhm.
so caught up in where you're afraid, like, "Oh, I can't because somebody gonna look at me this way or they gonna think I'm
Mhm.
this and that."
Mhm.
Nah,
Mhm.
like, trust me, you'll have a better outcome with putting yourself first in, the majority of situations
Mhm.
that you're in,
Mhm.
of thinking about
Mhm.
yourself first more than anything else. Even for your kids, you should wanna think about
Mhm.
yourself first. Because if I'm not
Mhm.
a good person, positive, in a good mood, and in a great space,
Mhm.
how could I be that way with my kids? How could I be that way with my kids
Mhm.
and give them, you know,
Mhm.
what they need without them looking at me a certain way or thinking that I may be being a bad parent at that moment towards them.
Mhm.
And not that there's no
Mhm.
well, you're ever gonna always get it right. There's no book to this life.
Mhm.
Like, you can't turn to
Exactly.
chapter
Not at
12
all.
and say, "I'm dealing with this and I'm going through that, so how do I press on?"
Mhm.
Like, we having a
Mhm.
podcast, like, we just sharing our perspective on it.
Literally.
And trust me,
Mhm.
I don't know everything. I'm the first person to tell you that I don't know nothing about nothing at
Mhm.
all.
I'm
I'm
not
just
sure.
sharing
Yep.
my experience,
Mhm.
with the world, like, in the things that
Mhm.
work for me. And hopefully
Mhm.
that it can encourage and
Mhm.
inspire somebody else
Yeah.
to, make different changes in their life that help them become a better version of themselves.
Exactly. But yes, let me ask you a question. So you say we should take some time to ourselves, call off if need be. So what do we draw the line? How many days do we take? Like, what if this is a weekly thing, or like I'm just not feeling people? Like I don't know what it is lately. I just need. I want a 4-day work week. So
Mhm.
what do you think about that? I'm gonna call off once a week. That's a personal
Well
day. I think I need that for me.
okay, well, first and foremost, you wanna be responsible still though, like, towards your so no, because alright, let me say this, because remember, we do live
Mhm.
in the land of capitalism. America is capitalism, and there's no moral base in
Mhm.
capitalism. So if
Mhm.
you do work a job, that means you signed a
Mhm.
contract, right? So you
Mhm.
still wanna hold up your end to the contract to an
Mhm.
extent unless they just treating you bad or being disrespectful. So I
Mhm.
don't know. I can't answer that question and tell you to call off every week. I only do it like once a month. That's how often I do it. I do it once a
Yeah.
month. But
Yeah.
I don't work on the weekends or anything like that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we get a lot of holidays and things like that off as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Flex days as a
Mhm.
faculty member. So there's a lot of perks that I have already that comes along with that. So me taking one day off a month, it doesn't really rock the boat with the
Mhm.
department that I work in where everything kind of goes downhill. So that's a little bit different.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
and also this is just a joke. So I hope none of my colleagues or nobody I work with ever listen to this because I live in California where they got stress leave anyways. So
I know they spoil you in
all you gotta do is
California.
go to the doctor and tell them you ain't feeling too well. That'll get you a good 3 months to 6 months off anyways.
That
But
was a joke for the
again,
latecomers. That was a joke.
yeah, it just depends though. It just depends. For me, I do it once a
Mhm.
month though. I do it once a month
Mhm.
because again, I still
Mhm.
got to be responsible for what I
Mhm.
signed up for
Mhm.
in terms of my position. And
Yeah.
if I'm hustling, I want to make sure that I'm in a position where I don't want again. Remember, we talk about perception being everything. Where I
Yeah.
become known as the call offer. You know what I mean? So,
Like he
no,
always sick. What's wrong with
no,
you?
yeah. So you got to think this out, guys. Again, emotional
Mhm.
intelligence, emotional intelligence. So
Yes, 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 yeah.
you
I know
still
I
want to think
present
this
these
out.
go ahead. I'll present all these questions. I know I'm devil's advocate sometimes. Just kind of keep everybody on their toes and kind of thinking, like, what if this is me? Or what it's always somebody who's the outlier. So I'm trying to think for those outliers out there. I know they may seem pretty hypothetical and pretty far reaching, but if I can think it, I'm sure there's one.
Yeah, I'm just no, Carmen, that's not far fetched. Somebody listening to us gonna say, "Man, I'm calling off every week."
Mm.
I wouldn't advise you to do that. I ain't gonna
Not
lie.
to
Like,
like
don't
continue
look,
your
and I have this,
job.
and look, I have this other saying too. Listen to me, but don't listen to me. That's another famous
Exactly.
saying that I
Do
have.
as I do. No,
Listen to me,
well,
right, but don't
parents used
listen
to
to me.
say, uh, "Do as I say, not as I do."
Yeah.
But
So
in
I,
this case,
I
do the
definitely would
opposite
recommend
of what
calling
we
off every
say.
week.
The opposite of what we do. Listen to what we
100,
say. Do the opposite of our
100%.
jokes. But it's
Yeah,
important though, like
that can
just
be rough. But
really
again,
having a sense of
you know,
humor.
yeah, and all jokes aside, your mental health is important. Your mental health is important. If it
Mhm.
becomes to that point where
Mhm.
you're feeling that you need off one day every week,
Mhm.
you might want to change
Mhm.
jobs.
Yeah, reconsidering. And think of
Yeah,
maybe try to do a little bit of research about the future job you would like. Not just don't let your job find you unless it's a dream job, so to speak, when you come to that conclusion. But go out and and seek different options. If you know you don't like manual work, maybe you shouldn't go get a factory job. Like think about the stuff that you want to actually do, not just what everybody thinks or tells you should do. Because look at Tyler Perry. We would have never had a movie. He would have been working at the electric company getting them good benefits.
yep, yep. Nah, man. So your mental health is important, Carmen. You drive a great point.
Mhm,
Make sure that you're
mhm.
when it comes to your career, there's a difference between a job and a career, but maybe that's for
Exactly.
another podcast.
Yes.
But again, your mental health always comes first,
Mhm,
and you should be doing something that you actually want to do. Seriously, like all jokes aside, like the seriousness
mhm,
of that. Like you should
mhm,
really be doing something that you actually want to do, that you're okay with getting up out of the bed in the morning, the afternoon,
mhm.
whenever you have to do it. Like you should be okay with that. If not,
Exactly.
again, I can see where there may come a point in time where you want to take off one day a week because again, you may not be doing what it is that you want to do. And that can be frustrating in life. That can
Yeah.
lead to a lot of stress. Again, that'll go back
Mhm.
to emotional intelligence within that work environment because you're going to
Exactly.
reach some particular breaking point within that course of
Exactly.
time that you're there,
Yeah.
or you could just get
Mhm.
purely burnt out from it. And if you don't have
Exactly.
anything kind of lined up or your next move that you're going to make, again, and
Mhm.
if you don't have a high level of emotional intelligence, you could possibly then begin to have a lot of negative interactions within that work environment. So to
Exactly.
save yourself a little bit of stress, heartache, and disappointments,
Each other.
try as you're beginning to embark upon your career journey to make sure
Mhm.
that you're selecting something that you actually wants to do that'll bring
Mhm.
satisfaction more to you. Again, there's a difference between a job and a career, but we'll say that and we can get deep into that another time. But
Mhm.
overall, make sure that you're putting your mental health first and do a little bit
Exactly.
more research on this thing, emotional intelligence and the benefits
Mhm.
of it, because we're
Exactly.
just touching a small fractional point of what the benefits
Mhm.
are of emotional
Mhm.
intelligence. Like this is probably
Mhm.
emotional intelligence 101, just giving you
Yeah.
the basics and sharing our experience
Yeah,
with you.
really.
Yeah,
Exactly.
again, I think you should definitely do more research on this topic. Definitely do more research on this topic
Mhm.
to make yourself become much more familiar with it. And as you
Mhm.
become more familiar with it, begin to incorporate, some of the steps, strategies, and suggestions that are out there in
Mhm.
addition to what we're discussing.
Mhm.
And I'm more than positive that you can get some great benefits once you develop a deeper understanding of emotional intelligence and begin to apply it to your life.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence is literally, if you think of a seed growing into a tree, like that's the seed that we need to water to help grow us into, like, think of a holistic human being, so to speak, because that's everything. That's our emotions, that's our personality, that's the way that we that's interpersonal and intrapersonal. So within and without self, or within and outside of self, like actually being able to be aware of everything, and taking that time if you need it. Like there's nothing wrong with saying, today I don't want to be bothered with people, so I'm just not going to do so. Like you don't have to because you're expected to. You don't have to because somebody wants you to. I mean, the short end of it is you don't have to. Period. You don't have to explain yourself on why this. I mean, unless it's in your contract with work or something, like, don't call off and be like, you know what, I'm not coming in today. And they ask, why not? I'm just not coming in today because they may tell you don't come back ever. I mean, but be
Yeah.
realistic and be responsible. Hold yourself accountable to your emotions, the way that
Mhm.
you feel, not to other people. Hold yourself accountable to how you feel. And if it's not positive emotions, happiness, like love, like things that are making you feel full of joy, or take things that will drain your happiness and learn how to decrease those things. A lot of times we
Mhm.
don't have that ability to lessen our anxiety, to lessen our pain, to lessen things, because it's like, well, this shouldn't happen to me. Why? And think why, like Lauren London, when she lost her husband, and I think they was like she was going through this whole battle with God, and she told herself, like, when she asked God, I was like, why me, and she's like, her response from God was like, well, why not you? Like, who
Yeah, I've heard
says
that
you
story.
can't
Why not
lose
you?
your husband when other people have lost kids, they've lost relatives? Like, what makes you any different? And a lot of us, we feel like, well, I don't want the negative emotions. Well, you don't want to live on earth because like you gonna encounter those obstacles. You gonna have upsets, you gonna have tragedies. Like the only people who bypass those are the people who don't make it to breathe life. So everybody else, we have something that we learn how to get past. Like it's people who have physical disabilities, mental disabilities, and they still find ways to. I mean, it's a motivational speaker. I don't know his like I forget his name, but he was born with no arms or legs. I mean, the
Yeah, I
guy
know
is
you're talking about.
married.
His name Nick or something like
With
that?
kids. Yeah. And he went through his period when he was explaining to her a story from him, and he was saying how he went through this depression because he told himself, like, how can I have kids? I'll never be able to hold them. How can I get married? I'll never be able to hold my wife. And these are nevers that he can't fulfill because he can't have arms. So he never will actually, and we tell ourselves, I'll never be able to make it, but we fully able and capable of doing everything physically to do it. Our minds are the place that, let's just call it cancer, in the sense that it's destroying what it makes contact with in our minds. We infecting ourselves with cancer and then surprised that we end up sick. And cancer in the sense that, an abnormal growth, because that's technically what it is. The only thing that gives it a description is if it's in your heart or if it's in your stomach, then it's stomach cancer. But cancer is cancer. It's an abnormal growth. We just have to think of it as like, I don't want an abnormal growth inside of me. So I just need to do all the positive things to fuel myself. Like the stress hormone, cortisol, will literally build up so high, it'll start decreasing the natural immune response of our bodies. And it's
Mm,
like, that makes you sick. So why not put in the health for your body just because you respect yourself to live tomorrow and the next day and the day
mm,
after that? Now, if you don't respect yourself to live, then hey, ball out McDonald's every day, 24/7, follow the billboards to the next exit every day and do that with your life. Like put stuff into you that you don't need. Whether it's McDonald's food is an example, but whether it's all this stuff, because what we put into our minds, whether we listen to it, seeing it, or speaking it, like we putting energy out there. And we got to learn how to like harness that and put positive out. Because like you can't put shit out and get diamonds back.
no, it's true.
But we
It's
have
true.
that mentality. It's like, no, they put work in.
No, that is true. That is true. Oh,
Yeah.
I guess this is another one in the books here, Carmen. And to our listeners, I hope that you guys been enlightened and
Yes.
somewhat entertained at
Entertained.
the same time,
Yes.
and sharing
Hmm.
our perspective and
Yeah.
giving more insight onto
Mhm.
unnecessary programming and how to reprogram ourselves to the life that
Yeah.
we want and to become the best version of ourselves that we desire to
Mhm.
be.
Mhm.
So, any closing thoughts on this one, Carmen?
Well, I just have a little highlights from this thing. Apparently, somebody named Matthew Killingsworth, who's some Harvard Business Review writer, published an article basically saying a wandering mind is an unhappy mind, which basically translates to constant mind wandering is the highest contributing factor towards unhappiness. They even have a term, not him, but just in general from the reading. It's like constant partial stupidity. Which is basically that wandering mind without a purpose. Like you just like you worried about worrying syndrome, basically. Is I'm just worried, 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 worried. Well, don't be a worry, worry. Because when it has worrying ever got a person to get to like the best possible like solution, decision, or like whatever, it doesn't. Like you have to like pace yourself, have a plan, think slowly, and take the emotions out of it. Like if you're feeling emotional, don't make a decision. Take that time, revamp the way that you're feeling just to get yourself back to neutral, ground yourself, and then once you're feeling less emotional, then make a decision. A lot of us are acting on hot tempers, and hot tempers are gonna make all of us cold bodies.
Mhm. Well, no, that's a great one. That's definitely a great one. It provides deeper insight into it as well.
Yeah.
And we can end on this. I'll share this with you guys. There's this thing that was given to me. I forgot who and when though, where it's
Mm,
called the 24 rule, in which, let's say,
mm,
for example, if I get a text message that I need to respond to, but it can be kind of maybe something I don't want to. respond to at that moment, or something that could be a
Mhm.
challenge or an obstacle, an email or something that may rub me the
Mhm.
wrong way. If I can wait, 4 minutes before I respond to it, then let me
Mm.
try to wait, 4 hours. If I can wait, 4 hours, calm down a little bit. Maybe I can wait 14 hours. If I can wait
Mm.
14, then I can wait 24 hours. And nine times out
Mm.
of 10, if I wait that 24 hours to respond, I won't respond in a
Mm.
manner in which I initially wanted to
Mm.
respond from an emotional
Yeah.
reaction to it.
Mm. I
So try that
agree.
out, guys. That's the 24
Yeah.
rule, right? If you can wait 4 hours, I'm sorry, 4 minutes,
Mm.
then turn it over to 4 hours, 4 hours
Yeah.
to 14, from 14 to 24. Nine times out of 10, you're not going to respond in the same manner had you respond
Mm.
initially when it first came across you, whether it be a
Yeah.
text message or email,
Mhm.
or even a
Mhm.
conversation that you're needing to have. Go ahead and
Mm.
wait before you go ahead and respond. So on that note, me and my daughter, go ahead and say hi. And we're gonna end on that one. And Carmen, I will catch you and our lovely audience on the next one.
Okay. See you guys.